Compte mes doigts. Où est ton papa? Où est ton papa? Parler, il sait ce qui ne va pas. Ah sacré papa, dis-moi où es-tu caché? Ça doit faire au moins 1000 fois que j'ai compté mes doigts. Hey. Dis-moi où est ton papa? Sans même devoir lui parler, il sait ce qui ne va pas. Ah sacré papa, dis-moi où es-tu caché? Ça doit faire au moins 1000 fois que j'ai compté mes doigts.
What's going on, everybody? I hope everyone's having a fantastic evening, afternoon, pre-noon, no matter where you are in the world. I'm Hassan Piker. This is the Awesome Night broadcast coming to you live from somewhat sunny New York, ladies and gentlemen. We're live. It's New York. And I hope everyone's having a fantastic one because today's a beautiful day. Today's a wonderful day. Today is a very special day. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Hassan, is it a very special day because you traveled all night? Is that what it is? Because you're in New York? Is that why? And I mean that's part of it. That's part of it for sure. I mean I'm very excited. Is it a very special day because I was just on Majority Report? You know, New York, Mamdanistan, concrete jungle where dreams are made of. There's nothing you can't do now. You're in New York. Admit you love New York. I do love New York. It's true. Are those the real reasons? Are those the real reasons why I love it? You sound muffled. Wait, really? Do I? Is it because of the merch drop? Is that what you think? Like, is that why you think I'm excited? No, that's not the only reason. I mean, that's one of the reasons. But I think the real reason is because you already know what the real reason is, ladies and gentlemen. It's the same reason every week.
Right. Well, it's Friday then. It's Saturday, Sunday, what? It's Friday then. It's Saturday, Sunday, what? It's Friday again.
Yeah, that's right. It's freaking Friday. And you already know what it is. We celebrate our forefathers in the labor union movement, the anarchists, the socialists, the communists, the trade unionists, the Marxists, and even the liberals that participated in labor action and delivered to us the 5-day work week, eradication of child labor. It's freaking Friday, baby. You already know what it is. It's mother freaking Friday. More like Friday. More like Fry Gay. You already know. And audio coming from the browser sounds weird, like there's no bass. Okay, well, calm down. Okay, I don't know. This is what you get. What you see is what you get, baby. I don't want to hear nothing. Did you hear any strange or bizarre persons? Did you see any strange or bizarre persons on the flight? There was a bunch of Hasanabi heads on the flight, as always, but no. You're in the new issue of ID Magazine? Yeah. It's merch day, by the way. Put your hands in the cash register for no reason. Any Mero appearances this time? I should hit him up. Bro, he was so tired last time I saw him. I felt bad. But yeah, it's Friday, March 27th, 2026, ladies and gentlemen. I think your shirt is muffling your mic. Take it off. You should fix it. That's funny. Ha, you're funny. You were in Jacobin. Dude, I was in Slate. I was in Jacobin. I'm in Tubi. I'm in Quibi. Catch me on Quibi. You know? I'm all over the place, man. I'm all over the place. I'm everywhere. Okay? I'm in New York Times. But yeah. Unk making motions, yo. Yeah, Unk's got all the motion in the ocean. I'm in New York City DSA. New York City DSA is posterizing me for some reason. I guess they didn't get the goddamn memo, you know? I guess they didn't get the memo that, I'm a danger. They should tell Bernie Sanders, who is Jewish himself, that I'm a dangerous anti-Jewish terrorist, you know? Little cafecito. I'm in New York City. All right, it's merch day. Your boy is canceled, the number one canceled streamer of all time. We're on stolen. I don't know what, it's not Tongva, but I don't know what kind of stolen land we're on, but I know that shit is stolen. And this is the part of the broadcast where I tell you about my personal news about what's going on in the world of Hassan Hasanabi Piker in between the time period where I press the stop streaming button, press the start streaming button. So help me God, that's what I'm gonna do. We are not going to do the customer service stream as we normally do because it's merch day, and everybody knows on merch day, everybody goes, hey, Algonquin, stolen Algonquin land. My apologies to the Algonquin peoples. Also stolen Cuomo land. Technically, the Cuomo will rise up once again, but Lenape land. Okay. How are the airports, King? LAX was perfectly fine. I don't know what that's about, but I don't know what that says. But LA, I cannot believe I'm stringing those words together. But like at a time when every other airport is collapsing, the Los Angeles airport is actually resilient and fine. Didn't see a single ICE agent, and TSA was perfectly chill. Got through that shit breezy. The real fear is leaving New York, because I landed in JFK, and let me tell you, okay, JFK is actually better off, I think, than LaGuardia. Obviously, LaGuardia's got some like crazy horror stories, but yeah, no ICE agents at JFK either. I don't know. Maybe I just like missed them or something. But LAX flew out, landed in JFK, passed out instantly. By the way, this was like in and out. It was crazy. Like I've never passed out so fast. Like no food, nothing on the flight. Just boom, out like a light. Got on the plane, passed out, woke up during landing. It was like a nice like 5-hour sleep basically, and then slept knocked another hour on my way to the hotel. Yes, I'm gonna talk about Nerdine. It's right here. Okay, it's right here. Chill. Abdul Sayed talking about me on Breaking Points. Nice. Anyway. ICE doesn't belong at our airports. Our Office of Immigrant Affairs updated its guidance. Well, I didn't see him. Maybe they spooked him. Maybe he spooked them with his sex appeal. Anyway, so yes, it's merch day today. Ideology.shop, Union made, US made. You already know what it is. But you know, as we are going through the motions of imminent collapse, the least you could do is look drippy. You know what I mean? The least you could do is look freaking drippy. But thoughts on Iowa, not political. I just hate those Cornhuskers. I mean, I have no feelings on Iowa. So, what else? I mean, yeah, I knocked out for another hour. I got like close to 6 hours, which is pretty good as far as sleep goes. Did an interview with Al Jazeera. Went on the Majority Report. Was working on the mini doc, and on top of that, it's merch day, so I was just like trying to get the merch drop out. I will not be doing any IRL today. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter stream today because Clavicular was arrested, and I actually came to New York for something totally separate, but I guess I'm dropping all those plans, and I'm going to the school walkout. The Clavicular got arrested, free Clavicular school walkout. Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. At least he's mogging. In his photo, because like if his arrest photo, if he wasn't mogging, it would have been devastating. But in any case, will Brace come on the stream, Hasi? No, Brace is CPAC. None of my friends, you know what's funny? All of my New York friends are not in New York right now, except for Stavi Baby. And he was supposed to come on the stream today, but his voice is busted. And he's feeling a little under the weather, so he can't even make it to the stream. And I was going to see him tonight, and I'm not even going to see him tonight. Tonight I will be hanging out with Zohran Kwame Mamdani, though, off stream, not on stream. But Noah didn't even come back with you. No, Noah was supposed to stay an extra day in LA, but he actually is on his way back right now. He's just not here. But yeah, Brace flew directly to Dallas after Cuba, so he's not even here. Felix is also not here. He's in LA, but Felix has been sick. He's got like a little stomach thing. So he couldn't make it to the LA streams when I asked him to. But yeah, I'm noticing that all my friends are abandoning me. All my friends are abandoning me because they're worried I'm getting canceled. No, I'm just kidding. Adam is not here. I don't know if he is revealed where he is in the world, but he's not in New York City right now, so I can't even, like, literally none of my friends are here. I'm in New York City. They're all not in New York City. They're spread far and wide around the world. It's not even a joke. but it doesn't matter. We have a lot. We have a lot that we're going to be doing. I have guests galore. Regardless, Effie Phillips Staley. I'm going to be hanging out with her tomorrow. Potentially going to a No Kings protest in New York City. See what this No King stuff is about in New York. See if they actually have a no war association with No Kings. What are you doing with Zoran tonight? Having gay sex, having sex of the gay kind. Yeah. Did you see the Cash Patel emails? Yes, I did. We're going to be covering that later, obviously. But in any case, what was I saying? What was I talking about? What was I going to talk about? I'm forgetting now. Oh yeah. Effie Phillips Staley tomorrow. She's running against Mike Lawler in a gettable seat. We'll be hanging out a little bit, and then I have that that no war conference thing that they're doing online. I said yes to because a bunch of my candidates are on it. But tomorrow, Ana Lilia Mejia going to the Bernard rally. So lots going on. Lots going on in the world, folks. I'll give you a fa. Chunk, you mentioned the merch 8 times. Show off all the shirts, man. Yeah, okay. Ideology.shop. You already know what it is. It's that time of the year. It happens twice or 3 times or sometimes 4 times a year. But yeah, trust the plan, everybody. New merch is out. This time I wanted to go with like a more, I wanted to go with like stream memes a little bit on this lineup. I wonder if you guys will like it. I hope you do. Will the Zoran stuff be streamed or filmed at all or a YouTube video? No. I'm going to like an event. We're going to an event. That's why it's not being streamed or filmed. Not everything that I do is on camera. Okay? Jesus Christ. Come on. Love the early 90s Desert Storm trading card vibe of it all. That is exactly the vibe of it. You already nailed it. We got Acquire Nukes, Nuclear Doctrine t-shirt, Acquire Nukes, Nuclear Doctrine for Sovereignty, and Nation Building. Acquire Nukes, Nuclear Doctrine for Sovereignty, and Nation Building. We got New World Order, American Century of Humiliation tee. This is literally like a ripoff of a Bart ripoff. This is a fake Homer Simpson Desert Storm t-shirt ripoff. It's Kaya saying, I was there and it sucked. Operation Woke Sharia Law, Operation Southern Spear, mission accomplished. There's a baby tee in there too. 85 Seconds to Midnight. Barbarism in Uniform. New World Order. New World Order, your freedom is not guaranteed. We were trying to do a PBS one too, but we couldn't do it in time. Sending a polite request for black baby tees in the future? Sure. The New World Order t-shirt comes in a t-shirt and a hoodie, according to plan. And then the You Lose t-shirt. You sunk my battleship. You lose. Please more black variants. If you're taking requests, please make pink. Okay, I'm not taking requests. I'm not. I promise you I'm not taking requests. You looking real white in these photos? I know. I've been looking real white. I've been looking hella white. Can you make free Palestine thongs for the girlies? No, that sounds insane. Is this merch allowed to pass the Hormuz? This merch. I have it on good authority. Shred out of the mouth of Aragshi. If you rocking this merch, if you are a Filipino boater, if you are, because most of the naval trade is occupied by the Filipino population, Swagapinos, right? To all my Pinoy gang Swagapinos, if you are wearing one of these pieces of merchandise, the IRGC Navy will clear you. You will not even need to pay the toll. I have Foreign Minister Arakshi's word, okay? So just remember, many benefits. They're letting the fishermen, the boaters, as long as you are Filipino and wearing Hasanabi merch, the IRGC will give you proper clearance. That's $2 million off. Unk gave up basketball. Now he gets 0 vitamin D. Low-key, that is true. That's literally the reason. Because back in the day, I used to ball outside. So I would get the Iran out there. Merch giveaway when? The merch will still be available next month. Hopefully. Inshallah. Hassan, can you speak on Bahrain? I can. Okay. Yeah, today is the day. Today's the day. Ideology.shop, like I said, it's merch day. Today's also the day where potentially there could be an invasion. We don't know. Probably not. But I genuinely don't know at this point. I don't know anything. I don't understand anything. It's quite and by that I mean like it's not the unpredictable side is not the American state's foreign adversary here. It's America, right? It's the United States of America. It's like, will the United States of America do the unthinkable? Will the United States of America do something that is absolutely, utterly devastating and humiliating, but very violent nonetheless? So, you know, that is what's going on. New York City, are we invading? Question mark, question mark. Iran hacks Kash Patel. Bro, can we get more pants, please? I pretty much live in John Brown sweats. I need variety. Bro, do you only wear merch that you got from me? That's crazy. Okay. Are we invading Iran? Iran hacks Kash Patel's email. Epstein's Fury, day 28. CPAC without Trump. DHS funding TSA. New merch time. Get in now. Times are hard. Don't shame our clothes. Bro, can you get a pair of slides on that site? No. Long shot, but let me be your lethal shooter and retool your game into a spacing big type a la Brooke Lopez. Okay. I have seen the Lego troll videos, yes. You designed the merch yourself? I mean, I don't like draw it myself, but I give the concepts, yes. I'm responsible for the concept. I'm responsible for like the vibe of the drop. So if you don't like it, you can blame me for it. Actually, if you don't like it, blame the designer. Blame the artist. If you do like it, give me the credit. Have you balled recently? I have not. I haven't balled in a minute. My boyfriend is listening. Please tell him to redistribute his wealth to me. I'm poor by buying me this cute bikini for the summer. Boyfriend, get to it. Have you seen the new and last Jujutsu Kaisen? No, I have not. What's up with the White House vague posting? I haven't been paying attention to the White House because why the fuck should I? They don't have anything important to say. So yeah. Motherfuckers cannot agree to fund the TSA. Okay, we'll talk about that. Yes, I know the airbase drone thing is pretty crazy. An American airbase that has like nuclear like planes with the capabilities of dropping nukes was attacked, but like not bombed, I guess, but like attacked by drones that were not interceptable, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, I don't really care about the White House like vague posting or whatever. But yeah, we're gonna start off with the your segment on the Majority Report was great. They didn't read my Dr. Jihad message though. Yeah.
Speaking after a meeting with
attacked but not bombed. It's just like they had an intimidating posture, an intimidating presence, where they like swarmed numerous times a day. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it when I get there. Okay. First, we're going to start off by monitoring the situation. Okay. U.S. expects Iran operation to conclude in weeks, not months. This is a signal that there is not going to be an invasion. But as is the case with everything that the American government has said thus far, this could just be inconsistent messaging. This could also be just a bait and switch, especially because we are currently shipping as many troops. I mean, not like enough troops to like fully invade Iran, because I don't even think we have enough troops to fully invade Iran unless we take the non-combat units in the military and turn them into combat units, which would be, I assume that'd be very difficult to do. I feel like you only do that when you're straight up waging like a defensive war, right? Or like World War II type situation. I feel like we would probably need a draft to full-blown militarily invade Iran and then like completely occupy it. It's just not going to happen. Also, speaking of which, you know, the markets are going to close in a couple hours. So we'll know when it happens, okay? Because as you guys know, that's just how Donald Trump moves.
G7 foreign ministers, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said he expects the conflict in Iran to finish in a matter of weeks.
As the Department of War has consistently outlined, we are on or ahead of schedule in that operation and expect to conclude it at the appropriate time here. in a matter of weeks, not months, and the progress is going very well. Obviously, we have some work to do. We have to finish the job, and we are finishing that job. I did describe to our allies, however, that immediately after this thing ends, and our...
Fill up your tanks before market closes. I mean, I have an EV, so I'm set. You are talking like this government is competent. They're inept. I truly believe that they think they can drop boots on the ground and do some sort of shock and awe and be out within a month. No, there's a difference. Like I genuinely still believe that like before any general signs off on that you would have a mutiny. But I don't know, man. I just like maybe they're trying to ease Trump into it. Like if you're reading the tea leaves like I am, one of the things that I have found quite fascinating that these guys have been doing is like they keep feeding Trump fake information to basically satiate his appetite for destruction. Like the 8 ships passed through the Strait of Hormuz. That was a big gift from Iran to us. I think that was like someone on his team just, doing a Hail Mary, I think someone on his team saw that Iran was allowing ships to pass through as long as they pay a toll. And they use that to like lie to Trump so he feels a little bit better about it. Because I feel like, I suspect he's being heavily controlled. By that, I mean, like, I suspect the information that he's receiving is about the war initiative and stuff is like very much trying to show him favorable terms so he doesn't do something crazy. He doesn't demand something crazy, right? He's getting those 2-minute clip briefings every day. It's boring. He doesn't want to pay too much attention anyway, right? Like he's out of it. He's out of it. Listen to Brian Berletic. The longer this war goes on, the better from the perspective of blockading China. This is the neocon Hail Mary attempt at maintaining unipolarity. I just don't think it's going to happen the way you think it's going to happen. I think any sort of initiative that like forces China's hand into joining this battle from the Iranian side would accelerate unipolarity, but not in the direction of America. Does that make sense? You feel me? I don't think that this would be favorable terms for the United States of America, especially considering that the United States of America has not been able to achieve any of its military objectives against Iran, a much weaker and much poorer country than China, right? Iran is using the leverage it has, which is the control that it can enforce over the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point, right? But China is the manufacturing hub of the planet, right? China is the manufacturing hub of the planet. China could literally shut off American defenses entirely. Because right now, we have functionally unlimited offensive capabilities, right? Except even on our Tomahawk missiles, we have apparently burned through a quarter of our supply, partially because we are incapable of using aerial missions that and the bombs that we have that we can drop from our planes, which are plentiful, right? You only use Tomahawks from afar if you have not been able to maintain air superiority. Those things need to be refilled. In order to make more Tomahawk missiles, you need the commodities that are being procured, manufactured, and rare earth minerals that are refined in China. There is no complete independence from China, even on our defense side. So if there was any sort of like serious war where China felt so threatened that they were forced into, kind of like Iran, ironically enough, forced into this battle, they will hit us with the trade nuke, which is export controls. Okay? Yeah, see? Someone else is also saying the exact same thing. Here's the fun part. Tomahawks need samarium cobalt magnets for their fins. China controls 85 to 90% of the supply because samarium is mined almost exclusively in China. Thank you for your attention to this matter. See? No, I mean, they got Venezuela to stop exporting oil. Now the Gulf states are stopping exports, and Russia oil exports are being sabotaged more and more. U.S. is funding guerrillas in Myanmar to blow up the Myanmar-China pipeline. It's all geared towards blocking off oil from China. I understand that. The reason why they're trying to gain a foothold and rebalance multipolarity even, as it stands currently, is because China, in the multipolar structure that we're living in, right? Because we are, it's no longer America's world, right? China has the leverage. The tariff war proved that reality in a way that even American idiots could understand. If you recall, initially when Liberty Day started, right? What did I say? I said China has a lot of levers to pull in this conversation, in this back and forth, but because they want stability, they'll allow Donald Trump to destroy global trade for a little bit, to showcase to their European partners that they are the stable and reliable allies, and force them to reconsider their relationship with China, which they did, right? They did do that. That's precisely the reason why a lot of these countries went to China. A lot of their leaders went to China. European leaders did. Mark Carney did. Keir Starmer did, right? And they started developing bilateral trade commitments, which is beneficial for China. But then during the Liberation Day tariff situation, you done got raided full. Hey, thank you. Is it Majority Report? Majority Report, thank you for the raid. Hope you had a good stream. I was on it. But yeah, if you remember, a lot of Western analysts couldn't make sense of what Trump was trying to do. I explained to you what the goal was, but then I also explained to you how this would, end up not panning out for America. When they tried to add additional qualifications while they were, having back and forth talks about like how we do a soft landing on this like unnecessary trade battle, China added additional export controls. They didn't actually pull the trigger on those export controls because it's the nuclear option, right? But they just, they added that in. They added that onto the pile to say, hey, we can do this to you. We have the ambition. So that is the reason why Donald Trump is so desperately trying to control as much of the oil supply as he possibly can so that we take back a little bit of leverage against China. Do you understand? Because China has all the leverage in a multipolar world right now. We have none of it. Because as long as the Gulf exists, China can get their oil from the Gulf and meet their energy demands from Russia and the Gulf. So now we're trying to shut off those other areas where China can get their energy demands from in an effort to create leverage against China's export controls. Because the reality of the matter is we need China more than they need us. Obviously, it's a balancing act. They need us for, purchasing their goods that they're manufacturing for us. But at the end of the day, if push came to shove, we would need them more than they need us. Okay? This is ultimately part of boxing out China, but I sincerely doubt that there is a thorough design here. We didn't even refill our strategic reserves before going into a conflict that could shut down global oil supply. I agree. I know. There should have been a lot more space between the extraction of Venezuelan oil and like being able to successfully refine Venezuelan crude at a level where we could potentially stave off any sort of supply shocks. But we didn't do that. We didn't even wait for that. We did not build our strategic reserves either. We didn't do any of that. We just went in balls to the wall, partially because, once again, this is Israel's war. Okay? This is Israel's war. We're just kind of in it alongside Israel. And that's why the timing of it is so hasty. And that's precisely why we did it, even though Trump's generals were telling him this was a bad idea, specifically because this would be a bad idea against China. Anyway, since the war began, by the way, this has been quite beneficial for Iran. Since the war began, Iran has sent at least 11.7 million barrels of crude to China through the Strait. According to tanker trackers, every barrel outside of the U.S. dollar system moves freely, while Emirati, Kuwaiti, and Saudi tankers sit stranded, right? By the way, Israel is obviously still doing its absolute most to fuck up the bag. They are, as aggressively as possible, trying to go up the escalation ladder and ruin any kind of off-ramp that America might get, because their goal here is to basically destroy the Iranian economy as it stands and piss them off so much that Iran strikes back with a devastating blow that makes it virtually impossible for America not to respond. That's the goal here, just so you understand. If you're wondering, like, why is Israel doing this? Like, I don't understand. Why is Donald Trump saying we are going to find an off-ramp here? Why is Donald Trump saying, like, oh, it won't be real war, it won't be like ground troops or anything? We're going to give a 10-day negotiations process, a 7-day negotiations process. Like, Donald Trump and Israel are signaling very different things. Donald Trump is, when it comes to like actually what he's preparing for, what his next steps look like, he's also signaling something entirely different than what he's saying. But when you listen to what he's saying, he makes it seem like there's a deal out there to be made. Okay? I don't know how much face saving will take place if there is such a deal, especially as it currently stands, as, you know, Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz, and it doesn't seem like they are willing to give that up. And why should they? Okay, they won it militarily, and now we live in the might is right world, right? If you live in the might is right universe, you can't really complain about that. People in Housecore are flaming for this exact take because obviously Trump is directing everything Israel does. No, I think that's the old guard mentality. I talk to a lot of people. I talk to analysts that are from the region, like in the MENA region, and even they still believe this. This is what Hassan Nasrallah was saying. This is what Ali Khamenei was saying. They were all Noam Chomsky readers, okay? Every single one of them. None of them paid attention to Mersheimer. They all paid attention to Noam Chomsky, and they thought, no, of course not. Like, America holds all the cards. Now, does America still hold all the cards? Of course. Well, Iran definitely has more leverage in this circumstance, but I mean, like, between America and Israel, who actually controls who? Of course, America at the end of the day could easily tell Israel, enough is enough. But again, I have to see it to believe it at this point, right? Because like something is different. Trump 1 was a change in attitude, and Trump 2 has been an even more accelerated version of that, where we don't just rely on Israel for intelligence, or we don't rely on their assessments. We have given them the driver's seat. We've given them the keys of the car in our MENA policy, in our Middle East, North African policy making, and it seems like, judging by the way that we're operating here, the timing of it, the lack of warning to our allies, it genuinely feels as though we are just trying to make up. Like Israel is guided us into this. Israel has goaded us into going to war with Iran, and now we're just like trying to find a way where we benefit, right? Because as I've said over and over again, like there is a larger long-term goal here of gaining leverage over China, our number one foreign adversary. Our long-term goal here is absolutely to gain leverage over China by potentially imploding the Gulf and then becoming like limiting the oil import capabilities that they have, right? On one hand, I do hope the regime is overthrown, but on the other hand, I don't want an American-Israeli puppet in charge. There's no world where the regime is overthrown and then it isn't an American-Israeli puppet. And the U.S. does tell Israel enough at times, like during the last war with Iran, despite how much their defenses were suffering, they were willing to keep going until Trump made them cut it out. We let Israel drive, but we always hit the brakes. So I think Israel is trying to do as much damage as possible for the U.S. tightens the leash, kind of like how they escalated in the days before ceasefire. Yes. But even if there was a long-term goal of like cordoning off China from, major oil exporters, and cut off China's like oil supply, energy supply to the best of our ability, if that was the actual goal, the long-term maximalist goal here, right? Because at the end of the day, everything that we do is anchored towards fighting against China in this Cold War that we're trying to desperately engage them in. And obviously the tariffs play a role in this. Like, the goal of that was also to try to force all of the other regional countries into creating a competitive manufacturing industry, specifically India, and then also get all of the countries that are purchasing Chinese goods to no longer do that, fixing our trade deficit with these countries instead. But every single plan, the follow through doesn't make any sense. Like, I get the goal, okay? I get the goal. I understand the goal, but there's no reasonable mechanism to achieve these results. Does that make sense?
We're done with our objectives. One of the immediate challenges we're going to face is an Iran that may decide that they want to set up a tolling system in the Straits of Hormuz. Not only is this illegal, it's unacceptable. It's dangerous to the world.
Illegal. Nothing. And I mean nothing is illegal, okay? We made this reality. And even then, we should be thankful that Iran still abides by like some of the previous standards, even if they violate them. It's not even it's not even a question. I mean, look at our targets, man. Iran does not hit civilian targets unless there's like intelligence that there is, like a military person stationed there, right? And you can see that with the civilian death tolls, right? Like the civilian casualties on the Iranian side are far higher than the civilian casualties in the Gulf nations or the civilian casualties in Israel. So it's not even a question who is actually doing unlimited bombing campaigns. It has nothing to do with Islam, man. Stop. Oh God, everyone, you're doing like Orientalism, but in a woke way when you do this thing where you're like, oh no, it's because of Islam that they don't want to kill children. Like, shut up. That's not the case. Okay, it has nothing to do with that. That's not a part of the calculation. Like, I'll entertain the martyrdom mentality when it comes to Iran, but I'm not going to go so far as to be like, no, they're abiding by long-standing rules of war specifically because of Islam. That's not the case. No, they're just abiding by the rules of war. That's what it is. They're holding on. They're only going up the escalation ladder. They're only going up the escalation ladder if Israel or America strikes first. Okay?
Turning now to the war in Iran and another sudden shift by President Trump. The president has now extended his deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz by 10 more days to April 6th. It happened just minutes after the close of trading Thursday when all three major stock markets suffered big losses. Ed O'Keefe is at the White House. Ed, good morning.
Vlad, good to see you. Happy Friday. With the war about to hit its fifth week, President Trump is feeling pressure.
RGC Aerospace Force Commander Sayed Majid Musawi responds and says it's no longer eye for an eye. So this is coming from coordinated strikes that happened an hour ago. Here, breaking news from DropSite. Okay, coordinated strikes have hit all three of Iran's largest steel plants simultaneously: Mobarakeh, Isfahan, and Khuzestan, the backbone of the country's non-oil economy. Together, they produce roughly 70% of Iran's steel output. Iron and steel is Iran's second largest export category at $6.48 billion, its primary hard currency lifeline outside of oil. Mobarakeh makes the flat steel used in cars and pipelines. Isfahan produces structural beams and railway rails. Khuzestan supplies the raw slabs that feed factories nationwide. Steel became Iran's top non-oil export precisely as a sanction hedge, as it's cheap to produce using local ore and natural gas, a critical source of foreign currency when oil revenues were blocked. Hitting all three at once targets critical industrial capacity and the economic architecture Iran spent decades building to survive Western pressure. Okay? And there's confirmation from the Iranian state TV as well. U.S. attacked two of Iran's main steel production plants in Isfahan, Mobarakeh Steel and Khuzestan Steel. Iran is the 10th largest steel producer in the world. Iranians knew from the very first day that the nuclear issue was merely a pretext for the destruction of Iran. Fars News shares details on U.S.-Israeli strikes that hit two of Iran's largest steel facilities around 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Damage at Mobarakeh Steel in Isfahan. Electricity substation was hit. Alloy steel production line damaged. Power unit. This is Iran's largest steel maker, producing over 7 million tons annually. By targeting the electrical substation and power plant, the strike effectively paralyzed the facility's high-end melting operations, even if the main buildings remain standing. Deputy Governor Akbar Salehi said one person was killed and two injured, adding the plant was operating at the time with workers present, per IRNA. Damage at the Khuzestan Steel in Ahwaz. The strikes hit two storage silos and several warehouses. Crucially, the blast furnaces, units 1 and 2, were reported to be undamaged as they were offline at the time of the attack. The damage to storage and logistical sheds disrupts the supply chain, billet and slab exports, but leaves the core heavy machinery intact for now. Deputy Governor Valiullah Hayati said U.S. and Israeli warplanes carried out the attack, according to Fars. Now, Iran's foreign minister, in the aftermath of this, confirms new Israeli strikes on steel, energy, and nuclear infrastructure, says Iran will exact a heavy price. Okay? State media have confirmed strikes on the Shahid Khandab heavy water complex in Iraq and the Ardakan yellow cake plant in Yazd. Foreign Minister Arakshi said on X that Israel struck two of Iran's largest steel factories, a power plant, and a civilian nuclear site, among other infrastructure. Israel says it acted in coordination with the U.S. He adds, Attacks contradicts POTUS extended deadline for diplomacy. Iran will exact heavy price for Israeli crimes. Okay? So is this a situation where Donald Trump is simply signaling a peace offering that he does not intend to commit to? Or is this an instance where Israel is actually trying to fuck up a potential off-ramp? Yes, Israel also is now confirming the reports that it indeed purposely struck an Iranian nuclear reactor and the heavy water plant in Iraq and central Iran a short while ago. One trick pony? Yeah, Israel only operates with this standard. There's no other way. Okay? They exclusively do this. Okay? They exclusively do this. Think like Trump, think like a stupid person. Yeah, I think I need to like slam my head into a wall at least 50 times before I can even begin to think like a Trump. So it's possible that while Trump has extended the deadline on hitting infrastructure, the U.S. is having Israel do occasional attacks to keep the pressure on and create plausible deniability for the U.S., or it could be Israel sabotaging, or a bit of both. In any case, IRGC Aerospace Force Commander Sayed Majid Musawi warns Iran will no longer respond proportionally to recent U.S.-Israeli attacks on infrastructure, saying this time the equation will no longer be an eye for an eye, just wait and see. Sayed Majid Musawi says, "You tested us once before. The world saw again that you yourselves started playing with fire and attacking #infrastructure. This time, the equation will no longer be an eye for an eye, wait and see. Employees of industrial companies associated with the Americans and the Zionist regime should quickly leave their workplaces to avoid endangering their lives." The Atomic Energy Organization of Iran said an attack on the Kondab heavy water complex caused no casualties and posed no contamination risk to the local population due to prior safety measures. Fars News reports that the yellowcake production facility in Ardakan Yazd province was targeted in a U.S.-Israeli airstrike, with initial assessments indicating no radioactive materials were released outside the site and no immediate risk to nearby residents. Breaking, the IRGC has ordered 1-kilometer evacuation around U.S. and Israeli-linked industrial sites across the Gulf as Iran prepares retaliation. Iran's Revolutionary Guard said its forces are carrying out retaliatory operations and warned employees at industrial sites across the region with American ownership or ties to Israel to immediately leave their workplaces. The IRGC has also urged residents within a 1-kilometer radius of such facilities to evacuate, citing life-threatening risks after U.S. and Israeli strikes hit Iranian industrial infrastructure, including major steel plants, power plants, and nuclear sites. Foreign Minister Arakshi says with strikes on Iranian infrastructure, Trump has betrayed his own extended deadline for diplomacy, which, if you recall, the Iranians never asked for, or said they did not ask for at all, and Trump said he was going to do it regardless, making it seem like it was actually the Iranians who had asked for it. This betrays that statement as well. Yeah, this is happening like literally right now in real time. Here's the full statement from Iran's IRGC on the evacuation warning. In the name of God the Most Gracious, I'm going to skip all this. The American Zionist enemy, despite previous warnings to avoid targeting Iran's industries, carried out multiple attacks today on Iranian industrial centers. Our forces are carrying out retaliatory operations. Therefore, we warn all employees of industrial companies in the region with American shareholders, as well as heavy industries allied with the Zionist regime, to immediately leave their workplaces so that their lives are not put at risk. Residents within a 1-kilometer radius of such industrial sites should evacuate their homes until the attacks are carried out. Kev Jun says, "It's maddening that we live in a world where one state can do as it pleases in recklessly escalating conflicts into greater and greater wars until the whole world is burning and no one in the West is willing or capable of stopping them. We are capable of stopping Israel. We just choose not to, for one reason or another." Iran has issued a series of urgent warnings and evacuation notices for major steel facilities in Israel and multiple Gulf states, declaring them military targets and ordering workers to leave within 4 hours. The warnings attributed to the IRGC state the sites have become military targets and are expected to be attacked within the next few hours. In Ashdod, Yehuda Steel; in Kuwait, United Steel Industrial Co., Al Hid in Bahrain, Fulath, Abu Dhabi, UAE, Emirati Steel Arkan, Masiyat Qatar Steel. Each notice warns that anyone remaining at the facilities risks being caught in imminent strikes, marking the expansion of the conflict beyond energy infrastructure to heavy industry across the region. An Iranian official spoke to Reuters. Senior Iranian official tells Reuters, Tehran has yet to decide whether to respond to the U.S. proposal because of the attacks on industrial and nuclear infrastructure. Senior Iranian official says Iran's response to the U.S. proposal had originally been expected to be delivered on Friday or Saturday. Why Qatar Steel? Because it's within reach. They are trying to spread out the punishment to all of the vectors of capital. I'm so glad this war is winding down, like Trump said. Yeah. Now that we know what has happened already in the last hour, let's go back to what Trump was saying this morning. Trump says he's extending a pause on Iran energy site strikes.
Even from some in his own party to bring the conflict to a close. And for the first time, he's revealing how he knows Iranian leaders are ready to talk.
They want to make a deal.
Insisting Iran is, quote, begging to bring an end to the war.
I say they're lousy fighters, but they're great negotiators.
President Trump rejected reports he's the one desperate to make a deal.
I'm the
Market's still open, by the way? Yeah. Yeah, we wait. We wait.
opposite of desperate. I don't care.
The president said he's postponing attacks on Iran's infrastructure for 10 days at Iran's request.
They asked for 7. You're going to say, oh, Trump's a terrible negotiator. They asked for 7, and I said, I'm going to give you 10.
But with Iran denying any direct talks and mocking the U.S. as negotiating with yourself, Trump explained how he's confident progress is being made.
Can I reveal the president?
For the first time, he revealed that big, expensive gift from Iran was 10 oil tankers allowed through the Strait of Hormuz.
I said, well, I guess we're dealing with the right people.
He says the move proves the people he's talking to have power to control the key shipping corridor Iran has effectively closed off for almost a month. Oil tanker traffic is down 90 to 95% since before the war. Economists now expect U.S. inflation to jump to more than 4% this year because of the conflict. Mortgage rates moved higher for the 4th straight week, while mortgage applications are down. Global oil prices are up more than 40%, and the American cost of gas is up by almost $1 per gallon in the last month. Amid all that tough economic news, the president says he's not yet ready to roll back the federal gas tax, which is more than 18 cents a gallon and a quarter on a gallon of diesel. But he said it's something he could do if necessary. Gail?
All right, Ed, thank you very much.
Dramatic new video appears to show the moment an Iranian missile came dangerously close to striking an American F-18 fighter jet. U.S. Central Command posting on X Thursday, no U.S. fighter aircraft have been shot down by Iran. But one source telling ABC News an F-18 operating in the region did narrowly dodge an Iranian missile over southern Iran in recent days. It comes as Operation Epic Fury nears its 5th week, with reports the Pentagon is weighing sending an additional 10,000 ground troops to the Middle East. The president signaling he's in no rush to strike a deal, but Trump extending the deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz by 10 days. And if Iran doesn't comply, the president says he'll bomb their crucial power plants.
All these stories that get printed like, oh, I want to make a deal. They are begging to make a deal, not me.
Despite Iran saying that direct negotiations are not taking place, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff saying a 15-point framework for a potential peace deal has now been delivered, with Pakistan acting as mediator. Iran, though, has not signaled any willingness publicly to accept the deal as is. At a lengthy cabinet meeting lasting roughly 2 hours Thursday, the president discussing a range of issues, including surging oil prices.
It's not over, so maybe it'll go up a little bit more. It's all going to come back down to where it was and probably lower.
That's crazy. But are we surprised that he's saying such ridiculous things? No, of course not. Also, Yemen is slated to make an announcement. Yemeni Armed Forces spokesman Yahya Sari has announced Yemen's military will issue a statement in the coming hours. This is the first time such a statement has been made since October 2025. Who knows what this means? But the Ansar Allah might be making some clip copies soon. We'll see.
Now, the president has said that Iran has let 10 oil tankers through the...
Like, up until this moment, Ansar Allah has strike capabilities. We know that. They've demonstrated that over and over again since October 7. The very fact that they haven't actually done anything for the last 28 days implies that they didn't feel the need to do anything, right? So that's always been another lever. That's always been another point of like that's another point of escalation, another point of punishment for both the regional actors, but also even commerce that's currently flowing through the Red Sea, right? Because there's another choke point, Bab el-Mandeb, on the other side. That's an entry and exit point for the Red Sea that Houthis could actually damage quite a bit. They could institute a blockade, as they have done so. They were able to bankrupt one of Israel's 2 ports, Eilat. So this is the reason why things could get so much worse for the allies here, right? That would disproportionately affect Europe as well. They would get double fucked, $300 barrel oil, can't get goods on their market. I mean, we'll see. Isn't it dumb as fuck that oil prices can jump all over the place, but essential goods like food will continue to rise till we all live in food deserts? Yeah, I mean, it's out of our hands, folks. That's it. There's no other way to look at it. That ain't even me. What is this? Hassan, I've been doing a great job reporting what's going on. A Never Hassan guy? Oh, damn. We got a Never Hassan guy in the building who's changed his mind, at least for the time being.
Strait of Hormuz, a sign, he says, that negotiations are proceeding well. But just this morning, the Revolutionary Guard reiterating that the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. They said they blocked 3 more tankers just this morning from transiting.
So the Pentagon reportedly weighing in, sending more than 10,000 additional troops to the Middle East as President Trump extends his pause on striking Iranian energy plants by 10 days. Retired 4-star General, Fox News senior strategic analyst, chairman of the Institute of the Study of War, General Jack Keane joins us now. General, we're 28 days in. How many more weeks do you think we need to finish the job, and what does finishing the job look like?
Yeah, certainly. Well, we got a little less than 3 more weeks in the minds of our commanders to complete this operation. Given it's taken a little over 3 weeks to get where we are, you can ascertain then that we have a lot of work still in front of us. And what does that really mean? Well, for a fact, we're going to accomplish all of the assigned objectives that President Trump has given the CENTCOM commander. And in talking to the IDF, they fully intend to accomplish all the objectives that Prime Minister Netanyahu has given to them. And the general time frame is as described, around 3 weeks. If it happens sooner, fine. If they have to take a little longer, we've said from the beginning that this is conditions-based. The enemy has a vote. And what is the enemy trying to do right now? Number one, they're trying to personally survive and keep the regime somewhat intact. And believe me, that is an enormous problem that they have. And you can see that. You're reporting on it every single day here in what is happening to the leadership. And the paranoia that exists inside of that leadership is real. And the chaotic decision-making process in there is real. So we're fragmenting that leadership for sure, and we have weeks to go to do more of that. The second thing they're doing, in addition to trying to survive individually and as a regime, is they're trying to protect their assets.
I love this guy. Mark is becoming more bullish. Markets are finally starting to price out chaotic White House statements. It took far too long, in my opinion, but now that it's happened, people will increasingly drown out the president. Credibility matters. If you keep making statements that fall apart in days, it disappears. Yeah, I still don't believe that. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't believe that at all. And the reason for why I don't believe that, I mean, it'll still swing. It'll still swing. It's nowhere near close to what it would be if it actually cared about the solid fundamentals and like ready availability of fucking barrel of oil, right? The reason why I say it's also cope is because Elon Musk exists, right? This, like the non-fundamental, inconsistent markets that simply rely on confidence, a dream, and the collective understanding that like things have to be good all the time has existed for long before Donald Trump came out and started doing this crazy shit. You know, long before then, Elon Musk at every single investors meeting lies aggressively. Everyone knows he lies, but it doesn't matter, right? Because there's too much vested interest in the stock price going up for Tesla, because it's a tech stock, right? So people lean into the speculations, even though Elon Musk has never followed through on any of his promises. So I just don't believe it. I think like, it might soften Trump's impact a little bit, but that impact will still remain, especially because the market is so consolidated in the hands of a tiny sliver of the population. The top 10% of wealth own 90% of the stonks, all the wealth in general, that I think that they can move in whichever direction they see fit. And they're moving in that direction. They let Trump molest the money, and then they let Trump unmolest the money, even though the money molestation continues. And they're incentivized to believe Donald Trump when he says, oh, things are going to go good. It don't really matter is what I mean, because money is fake.
They know we know where everything is, and we're systematically taking them down. They want to save something for sure, so they have the ability to retaliate against what? When we begin to open up the Straits of Hormuz, if we're going to take Kharg Island, they're going to want to do some kind of military retaliation against likely allies and partners in the region and U.S. bases would be the easiest targets. Israel, a more challenging target, to be sure. And they're trying to hide that, deceive that as much as possible, protect some of those resources, while at the same time still trying to fire missiles and drones at our bases and at Israel. So that makes those targets identification and destruction more challenging. Are we going to be able to do that? You betcha. But it takes more time, it takes more identification, more tracking to do that. I try to describe it in a football analogy. You know, we're in the red zone here. We're on the 20-yard line. We're trying to get to the goal line. And
Dog, we've been in the fucking 20-yard line for the last, 3 weeks. What do you mean? This guy's entire job is to go on Fox News and be like, yeah, no, you don't understand. Israel, hi. Israel's doing a fantastic job. It's Iran. Iran is in our crosshairs. Why are they fighting back? Well, they'll soon learn the lesson to never do this again. Another fresh KC-135 loss. Oh my God. Another one, dude. Another one. Fantastic. What do you say to this, dude? We're just fucking melting. Another Lint laundry machine incident.
And the opposition is putting as much impediments in because they can see how close we are to attaining our objectives, and they're doing everything they can to prevent that from happening.
Right.
We have the wherewithal to get this done for sure. And major events in front of us is take down as many missiles as we can, all the drones and nuclear enrichment, all of those targets still there, not all completed yet. And obviously, we fully intend to open up the Straits of Hormuz and keep that open. And that means it's not just about escorting ships. It's about securing it to make certain it's protected. Right. And that it's an acceptable risk to begin and to move ships through the Straits. And Iran's not going to sit on their hands while we attempt to do something like that. They're going to come after us, and we got to make certain we stop them.
And, General, I guess they're charging $2 million if you want to move your tanker through there, so they see extortion's got to stop. I understand, too, what the Iranians are saying is, and the Houthis are confirming, they say they're ready to get into the act and essentially try to shut down the Red Sea if they say if the Iranians ask them to. What will we do if the Houthis get in? And why don't you think they're in yet?
Well, I think the reason why Hezbollah isn't full in, they're only largely attacking mostly in the north, and they have capability to range all of Israel's major cities. And the Houthis, it's self-protection. And listen, they're not sure Iran's going to survive. So why should they hang themselves out and lose all of their resources and their capability to impose their will in the area that they're most concerned about, right there in Yemen? Why do that if they don't think this regime is going to survive? And believe me, that has got to be a question mark for all of those proxies out there. And how much risk are they willing to take on, given the shaky situation the Iranian regime is in? That's got to be a part of the decision-making process they're going through.
I understand, according to reports, we had the coordinates, or the Israelis had the coordinates on the Speaker of the House and the Foreign Minister. And we're asked by the Pakistanis, don't kill them. We're dealing with them. Those are the two people we can talk to. So the U.S. told the Israelis to back off. Would that be a good move if that indeed happened the way I said it?
Well, I don't know anything about that, nor do I pursue inquiry.
Why does this dickhead have an Israel pin? I mean, you know, at least he's doing it. At least he's like doing the NASCAR meme, you know? He's showing who his big donors are, right?
Inquiries like that. It's plausible something like that would happen to keep the lines of communication open for negotiations. Listen, anybody close to this knows who the Iranians are. None of us think that these negotiations will materialize. And the reason is simple for our audience to understand. We're asking Iran to give up, to surrender everything that we're willing to take away from them, everything. And if they don't do that, no deal. And that's the reality of what we're facing here. So are they in a position to do that? Given this 47-year history of the regime, their tendency is not to surrender all of that. to dig their heels in and try to survive.
Right.
That's more likely the path we're on. I actually prefer the military option anyway, because the military option continues to destroy that leadership, continues to break them down, continues to make them much more vulnerable to collapse after. It enables us to take Carg Island, which is 90% of their fuel distribution. That would cause economic collapse. And
I mean, this is fantasy land, right? It's just fucking pure fantasy land. You hit steel production when you don't have the capacity to diminish their military capabilities. Okay? The soldiers are not sitting at fucking bases. They haven't been since the beginning of the opening salvo. You've bombed out basically every emptied out Busage headquarter, every emptied out IRGC target you possibly could. And you tried to attrit their strike capabilities, the Iranian strike capabilities, to limited success. So now it's clear that Iran is still holding the Strait of Hormuz and enforcing its capabilities and allowing commerce to flow through, but with Iranian conditions. So Donald Trump has to make this calculation. Do we just continue? Do we continue going in? Do we send in troops? Do we cause American sons and daughters to return home in flag-draped coffins? Is that what we're going to be doing? Or do we try to pull an off-ramp here and try to save face? Guys like this, you shouldn't even listen to because they're so outside of the conversation. Like, they've been, this guy, you could have asked this guy 25 years ago and he'd have the same decision here. He'd be like, yeah, we got to strike now. We got to strike now, you know? This is his job. But Israel escalating and striking Iranian steel and iron factories, striking civilian power plants, nuclear power plants. That is a way to sabotage whatever off-ramp might exist. And if we can figure that out, I'm pretty sure Trump can figure that out too. So if his goal is to genuinely save face, if enough people in his immediate circle is feeding him this information, if they're telling him like, you got to pull out, big dog, this is not sustainable at all, right?
Gives us huge leverage in holding the regime accountable then for what? Don't go out and kill any of your population. If you do that, this is what we intend to do to you. It gives us huge leverage that negotiations would not provide us.
General, you had a huge day. You got up early for us. We truly appreciate you keeping your Friday appointment. General Jack Keane, thanks so much.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube. That's full shows streaming now on Fox 1.
President Trump is weighing several options that could result in heavy U.S. casualties. It's a heavy sentence to say, but that's the reality. And according to Axios, on top of invading Carg Island, a move that Trump, of course, we've pointed out, has talked about since 1988, the Pentagon is also drawing up scenarios that involve military action on several other Iranian islands. Those islands key to Iran's oil production, as well as control over the Strait of Hormuz itself. Axios is now reporting specifically on some other possible invasions, and I know Seth had spent time talking about two other islands closer to the Strait of Hormuz and also seizing the Iranian ships that are carrying Iranian oil.
Ben Burgess defends you using the scope of current affairs piece. If you dare kill your own population, we will kill them for you. I mean, that's the American method always. Gavin Newsome defends Trump's actions in Cuba. I know. Haaretz, after initial sprint, Iran missile attacks settling into marathon pace. Similar trend to strikes in the Gulf, documented by Griego. Bad news, but unsurprising. Iran's missile capacity steady after a full month of U.S.-Israel war. Yes, of course. Of course it is. As I've said over and over again, their silos are deep underground. Their production facilities are deep underground. Their manufacturing in their war industry is designed to withstand heavy bombardment. They have had 47 years to build it that way. Okay? All you can do is blow up these incredibly cheap Temu vehicles that are not real launching platforms at all. These are easy to fix launching platforms. These are just like regular cars, you know? They're like K trucks and shit. These aren't expensive pieces of machinery. These are not sophisticated machines. They're disposable. I've shown you the missile cars, right? So knowing what you know now, I hope you understand what I was talking about. A little bit more sophisticated than K-Trucks. Yes, of course it's a little bit more sophisticated than K-Trucks, but like it's infinitely less sophisticated than the regular launching platforms that America utilizes, that Ukraine utilizes, that the Western world utilizes, that Israel utilizes, that like it's not, these are not fixed position launchers in general. And not only that, but they're not like those massive fucking trucks that you see that are millions of dollars. Okay? Yeah, they're bolt-on launchers that they put on the back of fucking pickup trucks. Like that's endlessly reproducible. So there's that. And then the other side is because the silos are deep underground and the trucks come out from these cave systems that they have all around this massive country in, mountainous regions, that the best you can do is try to shut off the entry points into the caves. And that's what they've been doing. That's what Israel and America has been doing. They've been shooting entry points into the caves, and then they have bulldozers and tunneling equipment that they have inside of the entry points of the caves. They bring them out and they dig themselves out, and they bring out the K-Trucks once again, and they keep lobbing fucking missiles. Despite repeated strikes on Iran's Yazd missile base, launches continue. Missiles were launched from the Yazd region in central Iran overnight on Friday from the same mountain area that has been repeatedly targeted by U.S. and Israeli strikes. Footage from March 9th, March 22nd, and March 24th shows multiple waves of attacks on the site, including secondary explosions and sustained bombardment across the surrounding area. The continued launches underscore the resilience of Iran's underground missile city network, where buried infrastructure allows operations to continue even after repeated strikes, with entrances targeted but core systems seemingly largely intact. This is why I say the Piker Broadcasting Service is for tomorrow's news today, right? Because DropSite is reporting on it right now. We've been talking about it for like the past 20 days at least. New York Times will inevitably confirm it and report on it a month from now. Okay, Piker Broadcasting Service. Subscribe. Piker Broadcasting Service, for you the people. By you the people, for you the people. Isn't DropSite fake news? Oh, shut up. It's not funny. Your voluntary contributions in the form of a $5 a month subscription or a gifted sub like Closed Presents just gifted 50 bones, or a free one in the form of a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, are the only reliable ways in which you can support the broadcast. That's right. Even without the mountains, the U.S. couldn't attack the entire eastern part of the country where a significant stockpile might be hidden. Yes, there's also that side of it too. Yeah, this is, most of the bombing campaigns have also primarily focused on the western side of the country. There's still an entire other side of the country that they haven't touched. Okay? Just remember. And they're launching missiles from that side too. It's just harder to hit east. Why can't we hit east? Because you have to fly over contested Iranian airspace. That's why. Wait, what the fuck? Okay, sorry. I muted myself because my brother called me and I thought it was an emergency because I'm live right now, but he butt dialed me. Zutniki Talk, thank you for the 5 gifted. Conservatives don't think DropSite is fake news, and they're worried that it's pulling America First young guys towards the left. I know. Yeah, DropSite is the most reliable source of news that's out there. Conservatives are worried. Mike Cernovich was posting about it the other day. I saw that. Mike Cernovich was like complaining that there is no like reliable coverage coming from there's no reliable coverage coming from any of the right-wing news outlets. So like so many of the anti-Israel youth, even on the Republican side, have now almost exclusively started relying on DropSite news. Turn off the air compressor or shut the door. That's funny. Yeah, look, he said, we are losing our young guys to the left because they all read DropSite news for Israel news. American conservative media won't cover issues that are all over Israeli press. Zoomers go to left-wing sites instead. Fucking centrists are worried because they're calling Hamas sympathizing media. Yeah, but that's the role I occupy as well, alongside DropSite news. Like, centrists think that they can just like brush this aside, that people are not, in this day and age when the media diet is so diverse, when you can get alternative perspectives, you can actually get the perspective of the opposition. You can get the logic behind our foreign adversaries directly from places like, my broadcast, places like DropSite. That it is so funny that these guys think like centrist Democrats think they can just like keep pushing people like myself and even people like Dropside aside with the hopes that like no one goes there. It's too late for that. If you understood exactly what was going on, you'd be dropping everything you're doing and trying to come to us. I wish Mehdi would join Dropside. What do you mean? Mehdi has his own version of that. Zateo. Also, Mehdi's getting yelled at right now because he did the Amnesty International stuff on the Iranian foreign minister, not Arakshi. But yeah, Zateo's great too. Yeah, bro, for real. Like David Pacman is talking about Melania right now. It gives almost no coverage on the war. Yeah, it's a major mistake, and I think it's because of the biases that a lot of people have. They don't want to talk about, they don't want to talk about foreign policy, even if it's like genuinely damaging to Donald Trump. It's the most damaging aspect of the Trump administration as it stands currently. But the reason why they don't want to talk about the foreign policy that much, like the commentators, is because they also have some sympathies with Israel, and they don't want to fucking openly say the quiet part out loud that like Israel got us into this quagmire, and Donald Trump is the most pro-Israel president we've ever fucking had, and how damaging that's been to America's force projection capabilities and all that stuff, and how damaging that's been to American domestic politics as well. And yet, there's not that much coverage. Sometimes I feel like the average person today is so diminished by capitalism, they're functionally children. I mean, there is that too. But yeah, we've gone from destroying 90% of Iran's missiles to 75% to 70%, now 30%. Do I hear 20%? You in the back, 15%? Yeah, this is the scoop from Phil Stewart, chief national security reporter for Reuters. The United States can only determine with certainty that it has destroyed about a third of Iran's vast missile arsenal. The status of around another third is less clear, but bombings likely damaged, destroyed, or buried those missiles in underground tunnels and bunkers, according to U.S. intelligence, our sources say. And the fact that they are posting this, what is this? I wish Dropside promoted far-right and anti-Israel people less. They post a lot of positive Tucker Carlson and James Fishback clips, even though especially Fishback is not newsworthy at all. They seem to think any anti-Israel person is worthy of promoting, which I think is the wrong direction. They still do great reporting, though. No, I mean, they're not sympathetic to those guys at all, though. I mean, I know them very personally. Yeah. Oh, this was funny. This was a funny take from Zaid Jilani. If Israel dropped a nuclear bomb on Tehran, the ADL's main complaint would be what a Twitch streamer said about it. Why is it always that someone who criticizes Israel creates anti-Semitism, but nothing Israeli extremists say or do can create bigotry? It makes no sense. Yeah. Now listen, I don't think Zaid likes me that much because he sees me as a culture warrior, but on the woke side, and he's like very, very invested in culture war stuff. He hates all any and every mention of like any socially progressive position. My criticism of him is revolve around that as well. I think he pays too much focus, too much attention, and too much emphasis, puts too much emphasis on how libtarded people are too woke or whatever. But these last couple of weeks have caused him to come to my defense as well. What is this? I genuinely don't understand how people are surprised candidates are distancing himself from an event with Piker in it. Like, did we forget about Mamdani distancing himself during the New York City mayoral debate? Wait, what? Graham Plattner backed out because they think it's because of me? What? Brother, what are you talking about? Graham Plattner literally had a Totenkopf tattoo. What are you saying? Are you out of your fucking mind? He gets it worse than I do. Well, maybe not worse than me. Polling USA is a moronic centrist. The one guy that Jews aren't the secret cabal, you are, lol. Yeah. Support of the PBS is my litmus test all election season. Yes. Doesn't he still have the Nazi tattoo, liberals, man? No, he doesn't. He covered it. I feel like the criticism would be gone if you had another public event with Mamdani. No, it doesn't even. No, that's not going to. I'm literally doing that tonight. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with that. They're still going to keep chirping. Also, like I said, this is extremely, extremely online. And anytime these guys write any op-eds or anything like that, and they don't reach out for a fucking comment, just know it's a little bit sus. A Michigan representative dropped out of the Abdul event and people are claiming it's because of you. I mean, it could be. I don't know. I have no idea who the Michigan representatives are. Guys, there are malleable lower level politicians that can be pressured, that don't know who the fuck I am, that are going to be like, oh, I'm scared, I'm worried, everyone's yelling at me. Okay? Have you seen this yet? How is this not Drewski? Indian Farmers Union taking support of Iran. Okay, let's continue with this. Trump invading several Iranian islands.
Oil, even as they've taken away the sanctions that would allow.
Okay, you guys are literally highlighting and making a bigger story out of like dumb shit. Okay, people that are not even on the billing on these events. You understand that, right? Like, we have a platform here. Be a little bit more responsible with it. You don't have to invite me into every single thing that you consider to be a controversy and derail what I'm trying to do right now. Okay? Stop being silly bitches and stop drama posting. There's more important things to cover right now. Okay?
Iran to sell that oil, but being contradictory doesn't stop them. Does it sound to you that we're on the verge of a potentially dramatic escalation?
It does, Aaron. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but the likelihood has increased that it will happen. And what we're looking at is the increase in the force posture by the U.S. forces. The fact that not only do we have about 50,000 troops in the region right now, but we are also getting more. We're getting more airplanes, more Air Force squadrons are coming in, fighter squadrons are coming in. We have, of course, the two MEUs that are, one is basically there already and the other one is approaching. And then you also have, of course, the 82nd Airborne. So all of those elements are critical elements for America's firepower in general, and they don't make deployments like this just to have an exercise. This is a demonstration of force that could easily be used for actual combat operations.
And every time so far that Trump has done that in this.
So weird the dog isn't on cam anymore. Brother, I'm in New York City. And before that I was in Cuba. Do you think I fly around with my 120-pound dog?
In this situation, frankly, even with Venezuela, he's used it. I mean, that doesn't mean it's going to happen, but that's the trend. Seth, when we talk about Abu Musa and two other smaller islands, you had talked about those. Axios is now reporting that he is indeed looking at those, and you had already said that was possibly a very likely option because they're in the strait as opposed to hundreds of miles north of the strait, which is where Kharg Island lies. So if Abu Musa is the target, then what does that look like?
Well, I think, Aaron, we've already seen partially what it looks like because what we've seen is U.S. aircraft striking a range of different targets on Abu Musa and several of those islands there. What that means is they're trying to target any air defense systems on there, stockpiles of weapons, any bunkers, communications centers, where if they do end up landing forces there, they're trying to limit the resistance that is faced. One thing that we have not seen a lot of is the bombing of those of airstrips in case they wanted to land aircraft,
right, you mentioned those runways,
C-130 or C-17. So that all suggests the possibility of amphibious landings to seize those islands, which could be used both for defensive purposes if there were incoming strikes to target the any transits of the Strait of Hormuz, and offensive operations.
It's crazy because, like, we have no plan. Like, our plans are just a hope and a dream, right? Our plans all sound like don't siege Leningrad, take it immediately. Like, that's what it sounds like. Every time I hear, like, which island we are going to take militarily, I am reminded of that famous tweet from that one famous neo-Nazi being like, don't siege Leningrad, take it immediately. It's like, how? How do you hold it? How do you take it? How do you hold it? Like, notoriously, amphibious landings are some of the most notoriously deadly battles that America and every other country has ever had in their history. I mean, I'm Turkish. I'm reminded of Gallipoli, okay? Gallipoli was a spectacular failure for the invading forces, okay? I mean, think about D-Day. It is an unbelievably difficult thing to do. And you're basically throwing piles of bodies into the grinder. And especially in this circumstance, there's not even, you do realize there are 1,000 people doing plans. It's just a question if the leadership's going to use them. Yeah, I know. I just don't think that, I don't, first of all, we don't have months of preparation. This is like kind of escalating beyond our control. And we just keep taking the most unhinged route over and over again. One of the craziest aspects of this, of course, is that, yeah, Yoav Gallant wrote about how this is a good plan An indicted war criminal wrote this article. I wonder, now I don't have a free press subscription, so I'm not going to, pay for it or anything. But I would love to find out if Yoav Gallant is, holy shit, seriously, 200 total gifted subs. Thank you. 200 total so far. 50 in this last one. Hype train incoming. Shouts out. Oh, Houthis in Yemen officially announced entry into the conflict to support Iran. This is coming out 7-8 minutes ago. Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you, the people, for you, the people. Your voluntary subscriptions in the form of a $6 a month subscription or a free one in the form of a Twitch Prime allow me to maintain my editorial independence. Piker Broadcasting Service for tomorrow's news today. Anyway, as I was going to say, I wonder if Yoav Gallant volunteered Israeli troops to engage in this land incursion. I somehow doubt it. Who took Mariam? Thank you for the 20 gifted. And Holo Sydney, thank you for the 25 gifted. Swiss P, thank you for the 5 gifted. We haven't gotten to the Cash Patel emails yet. We're still monitoring the fucking situation. TLDR is what? Former Israeli Defense Minister, war criminal Yoav Gallant, in an article for Barry Weiss's Free Press, says the U.S. should seize Karg Island. Maddie Icicle, thank you for the 10. And Lil B Stan, thank you for the 10 gifted. Sento1, thank you for the 5 gifted. Yes, there are risks, Gallant acknowledges. Any operation to seize Karg would require thousands of troops, sustained air and naval support, and detailed intelligence, and it would carry a real and expected cost in human life. Nonetheless, it's a risk he's willing to take with American soldiers' lives. Nice, nice, nice. And Juna Pete Farmer, Desh Clock, is SB98, thank you for the 10. Howley Bop, Turbulent Pancakes. Hormuz may be closed, but all the oilers are coming in. Yeah. Spaceman SR, thank you for the Mood and Goo Fever, thank you for the 20. God of Nativity, EP Lupo with the 10. Juliet Home, nice. Pause it Chronic, thank you for the 10. Yeah, Yoav Gallant hit the some of you may die, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. About American soldiers, by the way. Deleuze, thank you for the 10. Yes, I know what happened in Hoboken yesterday with Nurween Kaswani's attempted assassination being thwarted. I know. And Thamion, thank you. Anatheka, thank you. God damn. Angry Raw Grinder, thank you for the 10. Fuzz, 3 Mog, RL. Techno Kitty. All right, I'm done. I'm done reading it out. I got to continue doing my coverage. Okay. Mooker T, thank you for the 10. So many gifted subs. I haven't been able to catch one. Yeah, it is what it is. Yo, it's Pipes.
Into Iran itself for strikes.
And I know that, Colonel Layton, you said that the amount of warning time that troops on those islands would have from a missile from Iran could be as little as 10 seconds.
That's right, so, depending on where the missile is and what type of missile.
Which fits with what we're hearing the Pentagon is saying, that the scenarios they're looking at involve a very high level of potential casualties. A sobering moment, especially given some of the childish rhetoric that gets thrown around, right? We're talking about human lives. Trump reportedly considering an invasion of Larak Island, which lies in the narrowest part of the Strait of Hormuz and is key to Iran's control of the strait, part of the area that's now called Tehran's toll booth. The island is 49 square miles, very small, but it does host bunkers, attack craft that can blow up cargo ships, and radar technology that tracks activity in the strait. All of this Iranian military. Colonel Cedric Layton is back with us at the Magic Wall. So, Colonel Layton, we've talked a lot about Karg. I know Seth's talked about Abu Musa, but Larak is also important. We've got it highlighted here. What would an invasion of Larak look like, especially in the context of what is already in the region and what Trump has coming in?
Yeah, absolutely, Aaron. So just to orient people right here, this is where Larak is, right here at the mouth, basically, of the Strait of Hormuz if you're coming out this way. Abu Musa is here, and Karg Island is right up here in the northern part of the Gulf. So when you look at Larak specifically, it is right in this area right here where
Larak Hussein Obama.
The area right here where you could really cut off anything that's going through the strait. So this is a critical military target, or at least potentially a critical military target.
Where my sub at? Listen, first of all, you're already subscribed. And secondly, if you haven't been able to catch a gifted when they're peppering the chat, Rabbit Fingers, thank you for the 10, then you got to do it on your own, big dog. If you haven't been able to get a gifted sub at this point, you might as well use your Twitch Prime, It's free. Every suggestion of how they might invade is dumber than the last. I know. And none of them factor in how they would be able to hold it let's say you actually invade, okay? You defeat the conventional forces on the ground. How the fuck do you hold it? Kawoki, thank you for the 25. How do you hold it? And then there's also reports, John Brown. There's also reports about, America depleting its offensive Tomahawk missiles. Like they're just burning through the stockpile here. They're burning through the midnight oil like there's no tomorrow. They're behaving like there's not ever going to be. There's never gonna, like, new events are not going to unfold. They're behaving like they won't need any missiles and that they'll be able to, adequately rebuild their stockpiles.
Target. And one of the key things is, how would you actually go about doing this? Well, you would bring in the Marine Expeditionary Units. This is the kind of thing that they do. They can invade using their Marine infantry to go across the beach. They have armor that they probably wouldn't use, but they might use helicopters to fast rope into an area. And they would also be able to use some of their other things, such as the...
No one understands what you stand for. I don't know what that's about.
Ospreys, for example, that it can be both helicopter-like, as in this phase, or airplane-like. So it's a very versatile platform. And then, of course, you have vehicles that they can actually send in. These are amphibious vehicles that can actually hit the beaches and disgorge Marines. So that becomes a critical thing, because when you look at L'Irak...
Here we go, back to QVC. Back to QVC. This is our favorite. American news broadcast is doing QVC for all the coolest gear, that will be fucking exploded by like $10,000 lawnmowers, dude. $10,000 flying lawnmowers that like drop multiple grenades worth of bombs. Like, it's just they have like tens of thousands of these fucking things, dude. It's crazy. You could talk about your amphibious shit all day, every day. But once you establish a fixed position, a forward operating base, it's over.
It is a basic rock in the middle of the desert, and it does the kinds of things that you would be able to see in these areas. This area here would be the defended area that you spoke about. Yeah. That has all the radar installations. It's also very mountainous. This might be an area that they could consider for invasion, but there are roads and other things here. So there are several different targets that could potentially...
Oh shit, Mike Prisoner. Breaking: U.S. Marines and sailors are actively revolting. Troops in the 31st MEU and on warships headed to the Middle East are filing emergency conscientious objector claims to stop their deployment. The Pentagon is terrified as the ranks refuse to fight Trump's war. Yeah. You can too, by the way. I'm going to keep posting the phone number and keep showing it to you. You can apply for conscientious objector status, okay? You can do that, even if you're being deployed.
Oh, absolutely. We have more than one client in the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, others who are out of Pendleton, that other Marine force that's being sent over. We have a client who's on a ship headed to the Middle East right now to be presumably part of an invasion force. So yes, I mean, just this weekend, I mean, we were dealing with at least 4 kind of rapid turnaround, like people who contacted us saying, I got 1 day, I just found out I'm deploying in a day or 2 days, and working with those people to file expedited claims so we can demand that their command do what's right and keep them home. And so absolutely, and I think the important thing is some people would think that, oh, you can't just at the last minute say you're a CO and not be deployed. You absolutely can. You are.
What the fuck? No way. Is there a second source on this? He is the source, bro. It's Mike Prisoner. He runs a he runs like a philanthropic organization that offers legal counsel to troops that want to apply for conscientious objector status. Yes, he's an Iraq War veteran. He's a PSL guy, Party for Socialism and Liberation.
Entitled, service members have the right to submit a CO application.
Yeah, CCW4COs.
At any time, right before a deployment, while they're on a deployment, people can file CO applications and have. This happened during the Iraq War. Infantry soldiers filing a CO when they are frontline combatants. And so, again, it's a right that people have that they don't know they have. And our job is to make sure people know that they have those rights and provide them the support.
Yeah. Okay. Another Strato tanker hit, by the way.
Be beachheads, but it is a difficult place to invade at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously that is where some of those casualties come in.
Yes.
I mean, the potential casualties, the risk here when you talk about.
My 78-year-old mother just bought my 42-year-old ass some new merch as a gift. She sometimes finds your words a bit harsh, but still supports you. Thank you from both of us. Hell yeah.
Up a mountainous area and
Ideology.shop. American-made, union-made.
Small, but there's a lot there.
Absolutely. There's a lot there. And of course, if they hold the high ground until it's bombed, that could give them a field of fire that could control approaches like at this beach right here or even in the southern areas. So it's a very critical element here that has to be decided. And there has to be a lot of fusion of different forces, air power along with infantry, along with other elements of power.
So Iran has been threatening now new threats against U.S. troops who are not staying on U.S. bases, okay? And that might seem a bit confusing, but there's a reason for that. Some of it is, as CNN's reported, some of those troops were moved off the bases before the war even began. But the New York Times is reporting that even more troops were moved off the bases because the bases have been hit. Yeah. And there has been meaningful damage. How much damage is Iran causing to the U.S. bases in the region?
So this is pretty significant. These are the bases as we know them right now, and these are the bases that were actually struck by the Iranians. So that includes everything from Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE, Al Udeid in Qatar, Prince Sultan Air Base, where we did have a casualty, a death near Riyadh, and I've been stationed there. And then, of course, at Port Shuaiba, where we had the mass casualty event with the Army National Guard soldiers. So this is a critical element right here. And of course, they also ended up attacking the area in Bahrain. So this is the Port Shuaiba strike. And what that really shows is that when you look at this area, this shows the vulnerability of each one of these. This is the Bahrain strike where they knocked out a communications element here. And so these bases are particularly vulnerable because each of them have a unique mission set. And what they ended up doing was move a lot of personnel into office buildings, into other areas, even into hotels. And now what they're doing is they're actually telling people in Iran and in this region right here, they're actually telling them to target Americans in those hotels, in those office spaces. So it's become dangerous in that way as well. Right.
I now give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Sayed Abbas Araghchi, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Distinguished delegates, dear colleagues. Iran stands today amid the throes of an illegal war imposed by two bullying nuclear-armed regimes, the United States and Israel. This war of aggression is blatantly unjustified and brutal. They initiated this aggression on 28 February, while Iran and the United States were engaged in a diplomatic process to resolve Americans' alleged concerns over Iran's nuclear program. They betrayed diplomacy for a second time in the course of 9 months by torpedoing the negotiating table.
Oh, there's been no Houthi statement yet? Did you? Iran agrees to facilitate passage of humanitarian shipments through Hormuz Strait at UN's request 5 minutes ago. See, look, this is what I mean. They are still playing by the old rules, no matter how much America and Israel does not. And I don't know. I don't think it's a weakness necessarily, but I think it's just like what the Chinese were doing initially, which is, look, in spite of all of the things that are happening to us, like we are still willing to show stability. We're still willing to, play by the old rules. I find that a strange choice, but who knows? Because the United Nations has no capabilities, right? Not sure if you mentioned it, but for military members to successfully granted CO status, they must state their outlook changed after joining the military. Well, the fucking legal counsel probably will tell you exactly what you can and can't say. Don't try to apply for conscientious objector on your own. That's why there are, there's legal aid that you can get. Galabaf is looking at the markets. They've spammed so much fake news by trying to push energy prices down that the market's just numb now. Keep going. Nobody's buying it anymore. The real prices will show up anyway. Powerful, maybe, but smart, not even close. Burned that fake news card way too early. They're just shit posting. It's incompetent appeasement at this point. No, the thing that led this war to them in the first place. Yeah. Global opinion matters. The rest of the world sympathizes with Iran. It makes it very hard for EU to just justly join the fight. I don't think you understand how depraved the European counterparts are here, okay? They do not operate like that. I don't think they operate like that, but we'll see. In defense of speaking with us on the hunt on Breaking Point. Yeah, I know. We'll talk about Abdul's response in a second. In a little
Among
bit.
the most harrowing manifestations of this aggression was the calculated, phased assault on Shajara Tayyib Elementary School in the city of Minab, south of Iran, where more than 175 students and teachers.
You guys want to know why I think it's a foolhardy endeavor? Because Israel did a genocide for the past 2.5 years, and they received such little state pushback. Like, in terms of what they deserved, they received basically no state pushback. Yes, broad awareness initiatives and steady protests were launched, and the consciousness, the collective consciousness shifted in the direction of truth and justice. Overwhelming majorities in the Western world now are they've arrived at the same conclusion that, you know, developing nations already knew a very long time ago. Having said that, liberal capitalist nations do not have real democracy, especially when it comes to foreign policy. European nations are vassal states, and therefore they cannot betray American interests. Okay? The most successful decoupling initiative that Iran can engage in is actually forcing European capital owners to realize that they must tell their elected representatives to decouple from the United States of America. Because if you understand that European representatives don't abide by the wishes of the majority in the same way that American representatives don't abide by the wishes of the majorities, and simply respond to economic pressures when the real bosses, capital owners, make those phone calls, okay? Only then will Europe move in a different direction than the United States of America. So far, they have abided by, they haven't abided by the wishes of Iran or anything, but like, so far they've demonstrated restraint when Donald Trump is clearly demanding that they join, okay? Donald Trump wants NATO to come in, all the NATO countries to come in, all the European countries to come in. Not necessarily for like additional military, additional units and additional assets and firepower, but more so for the diplomatic pressure that it will create for Iran, because Iran is responsive to that sort of thing. Okay? They have not done so thus far, but I don't think it's because there is this mutual agreement on maintaining stability or abiding by international rules, international standards. I think it's more so because they're worried about the impact. They're worried about the damage that this may cause to their assets.
Were slaughtered in cold blood. This barbaric attack is but the visible tip of a far bigger iceberg, one that conceals beneath its surface far graver catastrophes, namely the normalization of the most abhorrent violations of human rights and humanitarian law, and the audacity to commit atrocity crimes with impunity. Mr. President, at a time when the American-Israeli aggressors, in their own assertions, possess the most advanced technologies and the highest precision military and data systems, no one can believe that the attack on the school was anything other than deliberate and intentional. Targeting Shajara Tayyib School was a war crime and a crime against humanity, one that demands unequivocal condemnation by all, and unambiguous.
The actions of the European states should not be assumed to be popular or even substantially unpopular. No, the European populations, just like the United States of America, don't want this. Okay? But Europe has two different pressure points. One, European leadership, European countries have to abide by, one, their own capital masters, their own capital owners, and two, they have to abide by whatever America's interests are. So far, they haven't fully committed to whatever America's trying to do, because even for them, it's a bridge too far. It kind of reminds me of like Donald Trump saying, we're just going to forcibly take over Greenland, right? That's what it reminds me of when they were like, okay, that's too much. Like, you're embarrassing us. This goes far beyond, previous incursions. Like, you're violating the principle in NATO, right? Their populace has way more power to actually protest because they aren't nearly as car-centric.
Accountability for the culprits. This atrocity cannot be justified. cannot be concealed and must not be met with silence and indifference. The attack on Shajarat Tayyibah School in Minab was not a mere incident nor a miscalculation. The United States' contradictory remarks aimed at justifying their crime could not, in any manner, elude their responsibility. To denounce such a merciless assault on a place inherently civilian, a place where the most innocents reside and pursue knowledge, is not merely a legal obligation under human rights frameworks. It is a moral and human imperative. Our conscience will judge us more profoundly than any tribunal ever could. Distinguished delegates, Shajarat Tayyibah Elementary School has not been the only casualty of American-Israeli atrocity crimes during the past 27 days of their illegal war. Human rights and international humanitarian law have been massively and systematically violated by the invaders in an unprecedentedly brutal manner. They are targeting civilians and civilian infrastructures with no regard for laws of war and basic principles of humanity and civility. More than 600 schools have been demolished or damaged across Iran, and more than 1,000 students and teachers martyred or wounded as the result. The aggressors, who are arrogantly shouting, "No mercy, no quarters," and threatening to strike Iran's vital infrastructure, have been attacking hospitals, ambulances, health workers, Red Crescent rescuers, refineries, water sources, and residential areas. War crime and crime against humanity are not sufficiently describing the gravity of the atrocities they are committing. The aggressors' targeting pattern, accompanied by their rhetoric, leave little doubt as to their clear intent to commit genocide. Distinguished colleagues,
the Houthi
this
statement
unjust
was
war
fake.
of wins by the United States and Israel against the noble nation of Iran is the direct result of silence in the face of earlier manifestations of lawlessness and atrocity in occupied Palestine, Lebanon, and elsewhere. Indifference and silence in the face of injustices would bring no security and peace. It would invite more insecurity and right violations. The United Nations and the core values it embodies, as well as the overall human rights framework, are at serious stake. You all need to call out the aggressors and let them know that the community of states, the human collective conscience, hold them accountable for the abhorrent crimes they are committing against Iranians. Iran has never sought war. Iranians are a peaceful, noble nation inheriting one of the richest civilizations on earth. Yet, they have demonstrated absolute resolve and determination to defend themselves against the brutal aggressors who know no boundary in perpetrating all sorts of crimes, a defense that shall persist as long as needed.
I did describe.
Marco Rubio was asked a bunch of questions off the runway too. Rubio says there should be a plan to keep the Strait of Hormuz open after Iran war. Yeah, after. How do we get there is the real question.
To our allies, however, that immediately after this thing ends, we're done with our objectives, one of the immediate challenges we're going to face is an Iran that may decide that they want to set up a tolling system in the Straits of Hormuz. Not only is this illegal, it's unacceptable, it's dangerous to the world, and it's important that the world have a plan to confront it. The United States is prepared to be a part of that plan. We don't have to lead that plan, but we're happy to be a part of it. These countries have a lot at stake, not just the G7 countries, but countries in Asia and all over the world have a lot at stake and should contribute greatly to that effort to ensure that neither the Straits of Hormuz or, frankly, any international waterways should ever be something that's controlled or tolled by a nation state or by a terroristic government like the one that exists in Iran today in that radical clerical regime. So there seemed to be a lot of buy-in to that concept. There's a lot of work happening right now. The UK has played a prominent role in bringing that together, but other countries as well. And there seemed to be a lot of acceptance of all that. And our allies and partners here, at least to me, seem to be appreciative of updates on our operation and an understanding of what lies ahead over the next few weeks. I think they all gave a commitment that they understood the necessity for it potentially, and that there would be a need to participate in something like that. I think some of the confusion over the first couple weeks, maybe in the media, maybe in other forums, is this idea that somehow we were asking for that to start immediately. I think we've always viewed it as a post.
Third wave neoliberal TV.
Look, I don't care what Iran says. the first few tankers that go through the straits after this operation is over, they're going to want an escort from somebody, or they're not going to be able to get insurance. So the world better step up.
This is Manila, the capital of the Philippines, and the people.
Yeah, there is. Let's take a little sidestep here. Here was Dr. Abdul El-Sayed on Breaking Points. Abdul El-Sayed defended engaging with the Hun on Breaking Point, saying, "We're talking about somebody whose job it is to talk to groups of people that you'd think people running for public office would want to be talking to," adding, "This is kind of crazy given Piker was invited to stream live from the DNC in 2024. He pushed back on criticism from Mallory McMorrow, arguing Democrats must meet disengaged voters where they are and focus on core issues like cost of living and healthcare." Oh my God, I fucking hate Gemini. What is this shit? So, as you guys are probably aware of, your boy is in the crosshairs by some of the most no motion having people on the planet. Centrist Democrats, Israel First Democrats, and the like. Okay? It's, ADL, AIPAC, all of these groups that have completely lost the public battle are trying to enforce their institutional muscle in the last area where they think they have a little bit of power. And that is, of course, I just unpinned Gemini. Thank you, chatter. That was very helpful. Holy shit, helpful chatters. Okay? So for organizations like Third Way, whose entire purpose on this planet is to enforce the wishes of billionaires upon the Democratic Party, there is no real popular base for these guys, right? And the same goes for ADL, the same goes for AIPAC, especially within the Democratic Party. That's why AIPAC as a lobby for a foreign country has to engage in these somewhat sophisticated, insidious ways of destabilizing American democracy. Funding groups that are not even named AIPAC, and running attack ads that don't ever mention Israel, running promotional ads that never mention Israel, making sure that their candidates that they're funding through these shell groups are not even aren't even really talking about Israel at all, as long as they are a reliable vote on Israel first politics when they get into Congress. So they don't really have any real popular support, but they do still have access to politicians. And they're using that access to politicians and pestering them. And they have some media organs that will run these attack ads, especially if any of these politicians respond to the pressure and actually release statements. So then it becomes newsworthy, right? That's when the New York Times will write an article about it. The New York Times is not going to write an article because the ADL is saying I'm an anti-Semite, but the New York Times will write an article if, like, the ADL and AIPAC get a politician to say that I'm an anti-Semite. That's when it becomes, like, actually newsworthy, right? And they've seen a little bit of success in the process, but ultimately, this is not going to change public opinion at all. They've lost the public opinion. This is just them trying to enforce their institutional muscle with the only outlets that they possibly have. And yes, I know the New York Times wrote one. I interviewed for it earlier this morning. They asked me for quotes. They, of course, predictably did not put most of my quotes in there. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, Mallory McMorrow yesterday came out with a statement alongside Elisa Slotkin and alongside Haley Stevens. This is, again, about the Michigan Senate race, the Democratic primary that's taking place in the Michigan Senate race, right? Michigan State Senator Mallory McMorrow, that's running for Senate against Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, came out with a statement, did a sit-down interview with Jewish Insider, which is a right-wing propaganda outlet for the Israeli government. That's what they do. It's all they cover, right? And Mallory McMorrow sat down with them and basically said that I am the equivalent of Nick Fuentes, right? Like implying that I'm like a neo-Nazi for having the popular position on Israel, right? Like, because at this point, it's no longer just the moral position on Israel, which it always was, but now it's also the popular position. And it's actually unimaginably popular in the Democratic Party's base. So for her to place herself against Abdul El-Sayed and someone like myself, is not to actually win votes. She's not signaling to win over voters, right? She's doing that to signal to AIPAC that as Haley Stevens' popularity is waning and she's like deeply unlikable, that Mallory McMorrow will take on that mantle. Like she will be the more viable pro-Israel slant for AIPAC. That's what she's trying to do. Matt Stoller has some words on this. He says, pretty obvious McMorrow stands with big money in Israel. The criticism of Hassan the Hun is just straight up racism. It's also a problem if you want Dems to communicate to podcasters. You got to be willing to talk to everyone instead of being in a tiny club. Jews need to reject the racism underpinning the smears of Hassan the Hun. Piker will be a key figure in pushing back on anti-Semitism because he doesn't conflate Israel and Judaism. It doesn't really matter, though. A lot of these groups will still continue saying, no, you don't understand. This is the most viable way that we can continue waging this information war. This is the most viable way that we can continue having the conversation on our terms by not necessarily tackling the issue at hand, not talking about Israel at all, but instead trying to cynically smear all of Israel's critics as vicious anti-Semites. You only do that when you don't have any other option. And to be fair to these people, it's very difficult to defend Israel, especially now, especially after 2.5 years of genocide. It's become unbelievably difficult to defend the state of Israel when the American consciousness on this issue has shifted in the opposite direction, right? So they're in a desperate attempt. They are trying to diminish, because they think like, I need these politicians for legitimacy, because they're operating in the old guard mentality, right? From their perspective, they're like, oh, dude, he's going to Vanity Fair parties. He's going on the New York Times. He's giving he's being given favorable coverage. We have to stop that. What they don't realize is, I don't need the favorable coverage, right? It's a mutually beneficial relationship. And for politicians that appear alongside me, it's not necessarily beneficial for me at all. I just get a lot of fucking endless amounts of hatred. It's actually beneficial for them. That's why I do it, regardless of the additional unjustifiable smears that I receive, right? So if there are politicians out there who actually get worried and are fearful of this kind of backlash and shy away from collaborating with someone like myself, well then, sucks to suck. As long as you still continue putting out good policies, I will most likely defend you. I don't give a shit about politicians being my friend. I care about politicians doing the bidding of the masses. Okay? I have a very pragmatic approach to this kind of stuff. So, the ADL, no thank you. Sorry, housekeeping. Jonathan Greenblatt also came out with a statement after the ADL Michigan came out with a statement. Except Zoran, though. No, it's same goes for Zoran, too. Put the policies in the bag, little bro. Remember, this is what I've said over and over again, right? Put the policies in the bag. That's all I care about. I've been very open about this. I have no, I have no interest in, I have plenty of friends, okay? Plenty of wonderful friends and family, okay? I have no interest in making new ones, especially in the realm of politics, okay? Having said that, as long as politicians are doing right by their constituents, that's great. I'm happy. I'm excited. So, Jonathan Greenblatt puts this smear out there because it's the Always Defaming League, and he's the head of the Always Defaming League. Big Baba Ganoush, thank you for the 10 gifted. Hassan Piker has a long track record of commending and excusing terrorism. He routinely uses his platform to spread anti-Jewish tropes, amplify propaganda from designated terrorist groups, and promote toxic anti-Zionism. Despite a backdrop of intensifying anti-Semitism, Piker does all of this, not only unapologetically, but proudly. Dr. Abdul El-Sayed's decision to host campaign rallies with Piker is not just alarming, it's absolutely shocking. It reflects a broader trend, the dangerous normalization of anti-Semitism in our politics. What is ironic about this is that there is a very significant amount of unchecked Islamophobia. And Jonathan Greenblatt tying the largest Muslim anti-Zionist content creator, political commentator, to terrorism, terror jacketing me, and claiming falsely that I'm anti-Semitic is actually accelerating that Islamophobia. He's leaning into the Islamophobia. Okay, it's one of those issues that is virtually impossible. What is this? Agreed. Talk to Tyler. What is people? Why are people saying? Why don't you talk to Tyler? I don't know what you're talking about. You're not a Muslim at all, though? It's weird. Buddy, I don't know how to explain this to you, but this has nothing to do. This has absolutely nothing to do with like how committed I am to Islam, okay? And everything to do with what my name is and what my background is. Anyway, that this is happening in Michigan, where Temple Israel was targeted in a violent anti-Semitic attack less than 2 weeks ago, makes it even more egregious. If the attacker had succeeded, it could have been the worst mass killing of children in history. And then he thanks and he gives a nod to Haley Stevens, Senator Slotkin, and Mallory McMorrow, the three Michigan politicians that actually released statements. Very clearly got a call from like either, pro-Israel donors or a pro-Israel lobbying arm, and released like very similar statements to one another. And the one from Slotkin was the funniest because she like openly admits she has no idea who the fuck I am and is just like very clearly going through the motions. She's like, I was told to say this, so I'm saying it. I don't know Hassan at all, but seems to me like he's really anti-Semitic, right? But Abdul al-Sayed responded to this directly, which is good because I don't mind getting yelled at. I get yelled at professionally, right? McMorrow, Stevens, and Elisa Slotkin all said things. Elisa Slotkin's was the funniest one, okay? I don't mind getting yelled at. This is my job. My job is to get yelled at professionally. I am unfortunately, I am the sin eater for all things left, okay? And I will forever remain the sin eater for all things left, right? It is what it is. The positive side of this is that one of the major issues with the Senate race in Michigan is that there's not a lot of media coverage until these past couple of days. Okay? Now there's a lot of media coverage and therefore a lot of attention on Abdul al-Sayed. So the way he carries himself and the way he conducts himself going forward from this point on, it's going to be very important. Okay? This guy just called himself Left Jesus? No, I did not. I'm just responding to the things that are unfolding and reflecting on them by saying I am the sin eater for the left. It's just the way it is. Dr. Abdul al-Sayed responds to ADL, to Jonathan Greenblatt, says, you deliberately conflate Netanyahu and Israel's government for the Jewish people, Mr. Greenblatt. They are not the same. I love and revere the Jewish people because I love all people. And I criticize Israel's genocide because I love all people. I pray someday you understand. Now, of course, Jonathan Greenblatt knows what's up. He's just a monster, a very cynical person, someone who's pro-genocide, someone who is absolutely an ethno-religious supremacist, right, of the highest order. Yeah, Eli Valley also brought this up, and I think it's interesting. If Greenblatt spoke like this, rather than cozying up the Nazis, celebrating genocide, and lying about anti-Semitism, the ADL wouldn't be a toxic cesspool of bigotry and hatred. Eli Valley says, Piker has done far more to combat actual anti-Semitism than has this worm who earns millions lying about anti-Semitism and contributing to the largest explosion of Jew hatred in generations. Any Dem who heeds ADL smears should be considered a danger to Jewish existence in the U.S. Yes, Jonathan Greenblatt, by the way, famously has even said that Jews should stop breeding with non-Jews. If you want to fully understand, like he is, I mean, a lot of guys, Zionism is a fascist ideology. It's an ethno-supremacist, religious supremacist ideology that is exterminationist, as I say all the time. That's why I say Zionism is racism. Zionism is Nazism, right? And in polite company, Jonathan Greenblatt, in a more sympathetic audience, will reveal some of the things that he wouldn't say openly to the New York Times, for example, right? That's the situation. Like Jonathan Greenblatt literally is operating like a. He has the same mindset of like a Klansman, pretty much, and not just against Palestinians at all. It's just like there is Jewish supremacist attitudes here. When you say stuff like, Jews need to marry and only reproduce with other Jews, that's what this is. Jonathan Greenblatt has also been posted with straight up a terrorist, JDL guys. Kahanists, an American terrorist group, by the way. Like this was JDL, Jewish Defense League, has done domestic terror on U.S. soil and has killed people. It is a terrorist organization, or was a terrorist organization. It was on the terrorism list until Joe Biden took them off the terrorism list. Just so you understand the dynamic here at play. But ultimately, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that. It's not necessarily that relevant And the reason why it's not that big of a deal, nor is it that relevant, is because this attitude is unpopular, is deeply unpopular. What we should be worrying about is not what these guys are saying and the limited amount of press they get around this and the manufactured outrage, right? What we should be paying close attention to is how much money these groups, these pro-Israel groups, these Israel first groups are going to be spending on these elections. Okay?
You know, I don't even know. And the point that you made in the first place is that we're talking about somebody whose job it is to talk to groups of people that you would think people running for public office would want to be talking to. They're the folks I want to be talking to. And a big frustration that we've often had is that too often the people who should be voting for Democrats are not showing up to elections at all. And the question is, where are we missing them? Why are we not able to move our message? Well, I think part of it is that too many politicians don't have a message that these folks care about because they are on the wrong side of locking these same folks out. And on the other, it's that we're not actually going to the places that these folks are. I mean, we remember the whole 2024 discourse about whether or not the vice president should have gone on Rogan. So my question is, what is wrong with going and talking to a group of people who have been let down by our politics, cast aside by politicians who aren't talking to the issues that they're talking to? And I'll just say this, the logic of this is kind of crazy given the fact that Hassan was invited to stream live from the DNC in 2024. And so I'm only doing what Vice President Harris did in the first place. I think the question then I would ask any of the folks who are so frustrated about this is, why wasn't there so much more outrage when she did it?
Yeah. Yeah. And not only that, but also I've appeared alongside Bernie Sanders, AOC, Zohran Mamdani on numerous occasions. Like, it's just not a thing, right? It's not a real thing at all. They're just trying to manufacture outrage and controversy around it right now because they want to, one, smear me to the best of their ability because they're worried that, like, politicians are going to see my stream as, like, a must-visit campaign stop, right? That's what it is. The reality is these guys are terrified that they have lost their grip. They've lost their capabilities of being able to bully politicians, effectively defanging a massive function of the lobbying, okay? A big part of the function of lobbying is that you can directly make a phone call to a politician and just be like, the fuck are you doing? You know, shut this up. Stop saying things about Israel. And then they respond, right? If politicians actually place more emphasis on someone like myself, because this community is capable of fundraising, this community is capable of getting reliable door knockers, this community is capable of improving a candidate's chances, even if it's marginal, right? And that this community and myself in particular am capable of creating and generating clicks around a politician. That's a terrifying prospect for a, multi-million dollar influence peddling operation, because I'm not a controllable entity. I don't have big donors. I don't correspond to the needs of big donors. I have my own opinions that I'm very unapologetically distributing with regular frequency, right? That's terrifying. That's it. It's like, I don't want to be corny about it, but the reality of the matter is, it is because I am not a part of this system, right? And neither are you. The way that Democrats smear organically popular left-wing voices, they don't control, expose how much contempt they have for their base. Exactly. Totally corrupted party. No way the right would do this for their dumb podcasters. They don't want ideologically motivated people to have influence. They want to be about pleasing big donors. Yes. And it goes back to the same argument that we always present, which is Republicans are scared of their base, so they constantly offer concessions to their base, which is how democracy works, whereas Democrats run away from their base. Democrats have contempt for their base. They don't like their base. And you see it. You see it in the way that they operate. So that's precisely the reason why they just endlessly talked about finding a Joe Rogan to the left, landed on someone like myself, even though I said I don't take on this title at all, okay? And then now, the very same people, the very same people like Mick Morrow, who said a year ago that we need to go to Joe Rogan, we need to not turn away people that have these platforms that speak to large audiences that don't always agree with us, is doing this thing, an act of desperation. Okay.
Until they kicked him out, I think the third or fourth day. But that's a different story. There were some quotes here from Mallory McMorrow, who's running against you, about Hassan. To quote this from the Jewish Insider, she says, "It is somebody who says extremely offensive things in order to generate clicks, views, and followers, which is not entirely different from somebody like Nick Fuentes. That is not somebody you should be campaigning with at a moment when there's clearly a lot of pain and trauma across our state. How do you bring everybody together when there are difficult conversations where there aren't easy answers?" I'll leave that question to you, Abdul.
I'm trying to have conversations with everybody. And I agree that there's a lot of pain and trauma across our state. There has been so much pain and trauma across our state. That's why I've always tried to name that pain and trauma from the jump. You go back a couple of years, we have watched as Israel has decimated Gaza in a genocide. And it took 2 years for my opponent to call it what it was, a genocide. So if we want to be in the business of understanding pain and trauma, I think it's important for us to name pain and trauma. And herein lies exactly the double standard. When we talk about the pain and trauma of some groups of people, that gets ignored. It gets ignored by the same politicians who tend to ignore the kinds of people who listen to Hassan Piker Twitch stream every single day. I'm trying to have a conversation with everybody. I was proud last Saturday to spend my Saturday morning in Jewish prayer services. I was invited in, and I was so grateful to get to share space. At the end of the day, I think it is absolutely critical for us to understand that pain begets pain. And the only way that we heal pain is by going and addressing the circumstances that cause it. That's what I'm trying to do. And then all of this seems completely separated from the foundational issues that people are feeling pain on across our state. Everywhere I go, people tell me about the fact that they cannot afford anything as simple as gas. They can't afford their rent. They can't afford their groceries, and they certainly can't afford healthcare. I'm trying to have conversations about how we unlock our current system, take money out of politics through corporate bribery, how we address the fact that we need to put more money back in people.
The system doesn't fear bad ideas. It ignores them. It fears independent voices because those can't be controlled. That's why they don't argue you. They try to invalidate you. Yeah, that's what it is. And there's a lot of dumb fucks out there who want to be like loyal servants of the very same institutions that have failed the public over and over again, right? And that's why they like advance this agenda. But the reality is it's over, right? Like you can't, like, you can disparage me, but you can't win this conversation, right? You can keep repeating over and over again until you behave in this like you can keep repeating to yourself and anyone who will listen to you that I am just like Nick Fuentes. I'm just like Nick Fuentes over and over and over again. But that doesn't actually undermine what I'm trying to do. If anything, that probably legitimizes Nick Fuentes. As a matter of fact, not even probably, that definitely legitimizes Nick Fuentes because you're diluting the severity of the term anti-Semitism by associating it with people who are just anti-Zionist and not anti-Semitic at all and actively fight back against anti-Semitism. I don't know. It's very, very strange. It's very strange behavior. It's like totally antithetical to the goals of the stated goals, the stated purpose of any Jewish advocacy group that wants to combat anti-Semitism, especially because if you were to ask the average person on the street right now, do you feel like people just kind of throw the term anti-Semitism around anytime someone is critical of Israel? It would be a resounding yes. Like the overwhelming majority of the public is already aware of this because that's all they've heard. On the one hand, they've seen children in trash bags being carried by their parents. And on the other hand, in the Western world, all they've seen and all they've heard is when people say, that's fucked up, we need to stop this right now, people come in and go, you're anti-Semitic, you need to be fired. You're anti-Semitic, you need to be canceled. You're anti-Semitic, we must do harm to you, right? So not only do people already have a severe distaste for cancel culture in particular, they also have a severe resentment towards the state of Israel.
People's pockets by standing with unions and small businesses, and finally guaranteeing every single person healthcare through Medicare for all. Those are the conversations I'm having with people, whether they are in town halls in places like Ishpeming, on Twitch with people like Hassan, or in churches in places like Detroit. And those are the conversations I think we need to be focused on.
Yeah, it's a good line. It's good.
You know, I don't even know. And it's
it's just not a successful line of attack. Like all you'll do is get a couple like scared low-level politicians to respond, or politicians that have different ambitions. Bizarre trend among moderate Democrats to continue comparing one of the country's most popular left-wing media figures to a literal neo-Nazi. If anything, the comparison only further normalizes Fuentes. Yeah. Let's smear my increasingly polarizing Muslim opponent for associated with the most famous left-wing streamer over an issue voters agree with during an historically unpopular war in the Middle East 2 whole months before the primary. Yeah, it's very, very strange behavior. But like I said, I don't think this is bad. I don't think this is a bad thing for Abdul. It's at most annoying for me, right? This seems normal. Jewish Insider has published at least 7 stories about Hassan Piker in the last 3 or so days. Yeah. Ted Deutsch compares Hassan Piker to Nick Fuentes, says Dem should shun him. McMorrow slams El Sayed for campaigning with Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker becomes flashpoint in Democratic infighting. Elisa Slotkin, Haley Stevens criticize El Sayed over rallies with Hassan Piker. Representative Brad Schneider, new Dems chair, urges Democrats to disavow Hassan Piker. Dems divide on Hassan Piker ties. Third Way calls out Abdullah Sayed's embrace of Hassan Piker. I'm used to it. I'm used to it because my positions were the same immediately after October 7 as they are now. And back then, the majority was not on my side. So if I could withstand the last 2.5 years of unlimited attacks like this, when the majority opinion was not on my side at all, and if I could just like white knuckle through that, then this is nothing. I think the real reason why they're doing it is because although this failed for Zohran Mamdani, I think they're trying to do it to Abdul El Sayed before it gets out of hand. You know, McMorrow could have slammed Hassan and Sayed, and fine, it's politics. The game is the game. But throwing Nick Fuentes in there is just so gross. Like, hey, I want to make it clear you all are actually the same as neo-Nazis. Yeah, another banger tweet about you. I actually think accusing 2 Muslim American men of being just like a Nazi because they support an end to the Palestinian genocide is actually a really smart thing to do when you're running for Senate in a state with the 6th largest Muslim population in the country. Yeah. It's actually really strange, too, because, like, I don't think this moves the needle for Jewish Americans at all. Because, like, as I've said over and over again, even Jewish Americans who do care about Israel or will respond to polls saying that Israel is important to them do not rank Israel as their top priority because they're American Jews. They're American first, okay? Why the fuck would they care about that? And this was also seen in the polling for Zohran Mamdani, right? What, you think like American Jews that care about Israel also don't want fast and free buses? They do. They do. They want it. And that's the consideration here. That's the calculation. Problem is, a lot of the lobbying arms are Israel first. Like, they don't care about anything else. That's their whole function. So when they're the only people that these politicians listen to, they also sound insane. And it's incredibly, incredibly unappealing to the average person. They hear this and they go, why the fuck? What? What the fuck are you saying? Why am I supposed to care about this? It's insane how someone can see someone calling for more human rights for people and end the genocide, a more humane and equal society, and think that that person must be as bad as a neo-Nazi. Yeah. This is low-key turning the referendum on Gaza onto the referendum on Hassan, bro. They hate you for your name and stole it. Proper noun for Chad behavior regarding Gaza equals your name here is going to result in statues. Wait, what are you saying, dude? That's crazy. Also, a majority of Jews as of last year say Israel's committing war crimes and all want an arms embargo, and this is before the horrors with Iran and Lebanon this year. Yeah. Counterpoint, what if you're a rabid ethno-supremacist and a racist? I was asked again last night why I'm so pro-Israel. 1,000 reasons, I said, and then gave him just this one. For years and years and years, Israel has quite literally been on the front lines fighting against one of modernity's greatest threats, Islamism and Islamic terrorism. Israel's been forced to fight this fight on their own backyard year after year. The modern world, free world, Western world owes Israel a great debt of gratitude for fighting this fight. Yeah, this is what it is. Joe Walsh obviously is a fucking idiot, so he says the quiet part out loud. And white ladies like, and this isn't all white ladies, but white ladies like McMorrow are at least agnostic to that kind of like unimaginable racialized animosity, right? They don't care about it because it doesn't impact them. They don't care about it because they don't think it's all that consequential, and they will lean into this kind of racialized sentiment subtly while still trying to present themselves as fucking progressives. Yeah, this was also ridiculous. Nurdin Kiswani, and we'll get to the Yemen statement in a second, okay? But Nardine Kiswani is a Palestinian activist, okay? And they've been coming after her nonstop. This is also part of the reason why I say point to a single Muslim advocate or activist that hasn't been destroyed by smears. Many of you might be too young to remember this, but Linda Sarsour was the original, okay? Linda Sarsour was one of the founders of the Women's March, and they destroyed her character. They assassinated her character endlessly with unlimited smears. Unlimited smears. Thank you for the 50 gifted subs. Yeah, they came after her so aggressively for knowing the truth about Israel and for saying the truth about Israel. Back then, these groups had a lot more success in undermining people with character assassination. And that actually was able to successfully shut off the conversation. Okay? It's gone now. Those days are beyond us. And yet, as Israel becomes more desperate, Israel's defenders also become more desperate and become more unhinged. Nardine Kiswani, like I said, is a Palestinian and the founder of Within Our Lifetimes Palestine. Okay? She's an anti-Zionist. And the New York Times wrote this article because someone tried to assassinate her. And the assassination attempt was thwarted. An official who was briefed on the investigation said Heifler, 26, identified as a member of the JDL, the Jewish Defense League, 613 Brotherhood, a New Jersey-based group founded in 2024 that describes its membership as Jewish warriors fighting back against rising anti-Semitism. Okay? Plot to firebomb Palestinian activist home disrupted by NYPD undercover operation, authorities say. How anti-Semitic of the NYPD, by the way. Yeah. The assassin, Alexander Heifler, spent weeks discussing the plot with an undercover law enforcement official and at one point went to scope out Kiswani's home. He had assembled components for the firebombs to throw, a dozen of them at her home. She's a mother, by the way. Nerween is a mother, too. So, unfucking believable. Nardine says, late last night, the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force informed me that a plot against my life that was about to take place and the agents had conducted an operation in Hoboken related to this plot. For months, Zionist organizations like Beitar and politicians like Randy Fine have encouraged violence against my family and me. I will have more to say as additional details come to light. I will not stop speaking up for the people of Palestine. Thank you for your support. Yeah. Nardine Kiswani, you have terrorized America and New York for much too long. We have had enough and we will not stop. You hate America, you hate Jews, and we are here and won't be silent. $1,800 to anyone who hands that jihadi a beeper. By the way, this is not new for the JDL. This was the MO of the Jewish Defense League in the 1970s and 1980s as well. Yeah. Nardine has gotten more information, says getting more information that they plan to firebomb my home and flee the country. That's exactly what Zionist groups did to Palestinian activist Alex O'Day in the 80s. They didn't face consequences and feel emboldened to continue doing this because they can always escape to Israel, just like that other pedophile did from Las Vegas. 4 members of the Jewish Defense League were arrested yesterday in the firebombings last January 26th of 2 Manhattan talent booking agencies that handle Soviet artists. 3 of the 4 were linked to both the bombing of the offices of Hurock Concerts, Inc., 1370 Avenue of the Americas, in which 1 person died of smoke inhalation, and of the Columbia Artist Management, in which no one was injured. The charges were eventually dismissed because 2 JDL members refused to testify against their comrades. This is in the 70s and in the 80s. For what it's worth, the prime suspects in O'Day's assassination were believed to be affiliated with the JDL as well. It's so unbelievable how much these guys, these Jewish advocacy organizations, get to like foment this kind of Islamophobic hatred unjustifiably, and then, you know, diehard loyalists decide to act on those desires, knowing full well that they can try to successfully do this and have reached success in the past, and then escape to Israel. It's ridiculous. The New York Police Department and federal authorities disrupted what officials describe as a plot by a member of a pro-Israel terrorist organization to assassinate the leader of one of New York's most active pro-Palestinian protest groups, according to officials in court papers. Members of the FBI and police department's Joint Terrorism Task Force notified the activist, Nardine Kiswani, and her lawyer late Thursday that an arrest had been made in connection with an imminent attempt on her life, her lawyer and law enforcement officials said. A New Jersey man, Alexander Heifler, 26, was taken into custody after detectives and federal agents searched his Hoboken home and found 8 Molotov cocktails, A police official said Friday that Mr. Heifler was a member of a branch of the Jewish Defense League, a pro-Israel group designated by the FBI as a terrorist organization. Mr. Heifler was charged Friday morning in a 2-count criminal complaint with making and possessing the devices and appeared in federal court in Newark on Friday afternoon. The complaint did not specify a motive for the planned attack, which was laid out in detail. If convicted, Heifler could face up to 20 years in prison. The complaint said the plan had been in the works since at least February, when Mr. Heifler discussed building and using Molotov cocktails for what he described as self-defense on a group video call that included an undercover detective. Prosecutors said in the complaint that Mr. Heifler and the undercover detective met in person the next day, and then twice more in the weeks that followed, including on Thursday when they built the 8 Molotov cocktails together in Mr. Heifler's home. He was arrested shortly thereafter. Mr. Heifler planned to use the device to target Ms. Kiswani, 31, the co-founder of the pro-Palestinian group Within Our Lifetime, prosecutors said. He was ordered held without bail on Friday after a brief court appearance in which he told the magistrate judge, Stacey D. Adams, that he understood the charges. He did not appear to have any family members or friends with him in court and was represented by a federal public defender. He swayed and fidgeted nervously in his chair, wearing a gray sweatshirt and a black yarmulke that slipped occasionally off his head. The complaint said that components to make the Molotov cocktails have been found in Mr. Heifler's apartment, including a large bottle of Everclear, a liquor with a high alcohol content. While making the weapons, Mr. Heifler told the undercover detective that he planned to throw some of them at cars and at least one directly into Ms. Kiswani's home. Soon after the weapons were made, law enforcement officers executed a federal search warrant of Mr. Heifler's home, which is on a narrow cobblestone street in Hoboken, and which he shares with several roommates. The complaint said Mr. Heifler had originally planned to flee the United States days after the intended attack, but he told the undercover detective that his travel plans had been pushed to the middle of May. Mr. Heifler attended high school near Princeton, New Jersey, and studied computer science at Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken, graduating in 2022. He was working as a machine learning engineer, according to his LinkedIn profile. In court, the judge noted that his income was likely too high for him to continue to take advantage of a court-appointed lawyer. That's crazy. A police department official said the investigation began in January when the undercover detective, who was part of the department's intelligence division, first infiltrated a group chat of people in New York and New Jersey area. The New York Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch issued a statement crediting the work of undercover detective, first online and then in person, in exposing and thwarting the attack. This is exactly how our intelligence and counterterrorism operation is designed to work, a sophisticated apparatus built to detect danger early and prevent violence before it reaches our streets, she said. The commissioner did not identify the detective. Governor Kathy Hochul also praised the police, saying on social media that she was grateful to law enforcement for swiftly disrupting this abhorrent plot. Another statement made by Nardine 30 minutes ago. As a Palestinian woman, I have faced years of harassment, threats, doxing, and intimidation by Zionist men. They target us in particular, but they will not stop there. They will come for anyone who speaks out. This violent extremist colonial ideology targets Palestinians, especially women and children, to seize our homes, lives, and futures. One of the first major acts of modern terrorism in Palestine was the bombing of the King David Hotel by the Zionist paramilitary group Irgun in 1946, which killed 91 people. Since then, Zionist groups have carried out attacks of terror across the region and the world. They have a history of targeting Palestinians abroad, including the assassination of activist Alex Odeh in the United States, and continue to expand their influence and attacks wherever they operate. They must be stopped. Elected officials or state representatives who work with or support these groups must be investigated. Their rhetoric enables Zionist terrorism. Gaza exposed it to the world, and we must act accordingly. 100%. I've been warning about renewed confidence and an uptick in violence amongst the JDL and various offshoots ever since I first saw the Shai Davide get invited to the link up with the account Jewish Defense Corps a couple years ago on Twitter. Reminder that Kahan's cousin Reuven allegedly hit anti-genocide protesters with his car in 2024, but all charges were dismissed. Yeah, remember we covered that. Yeah, Meir Kahan is who many people point to when they're talking about like a Nazi, like a Jewish neo-Nazi. Okay. With yet another attempted Kahana's JDL terror attack, reminder that Blinken removed Kahan Chai, a violent organization with the same founder, from the FTO list in 2022. That's true. They did. Remember, I told you they did. Anthony Blinken said, they were nascent, that they don't actually, they're not in operation anymore, so we must remove them from the foreign terrorist organization list. They obviously have not stopped, and they've actually grown in numbers since then. Yeah. May 2022, Biden Blinken tell Congress they're delisting Kahanist movement as a foreign terror org despite concerns by Palestinian rights groups. May 2024, literal member of the Kahan family commits an act of terror with his vehicle in New York. How is this not a bigger scandal? Reuven Kahan, a cousin of the late fascist founder of the Jewish Defense League and the murderous Kahanist movement in occupied Palestine, Meir Kahan, struck a pro-Palestine student with his car in Manhattan. All charges were dismissed, by the way. Here's Zoran Mamdani's statement. Although, Zoran and Nurdin have duked it out on the timeline quite a bit. He says, last night, an alleged member of the Jewish Defense League, designated by the FBI as a known violent extremist organization, attempted to blow up one of the home of Nurdin Keswani in a chilling act of political violence and an apparent assassination plot. The defendant allegedly planned to flee to Israel following the attack. This comes amidst an alarming rise in threats and violence across the country targeting Palestinian human rights advocates. I am thankful for the NYPD and the FBI thwarted this plot, which could have endangered Nurdin's life and those of other New Yorkers. Let me be clear. We will not tolerate violent extremism in our city. No one should face violence for their political beliefs or their advocacy. I'm relieved that Nurdin is safe. Our city must meet hate with solidarity and meet fear with an unshakable commitment to justice to one another. Thank you for this important statement. There's never been a New York City mayor willing to call out Jewish extremism for what it is. I also appreciate that you clarified the JDL member planned to flee to Israel. This is an important detail that confirms what I've been thinking. By the way, yeah, here's the head of ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt, caught hanging out with JDL members during the UCLA campus protests. Okay? And not only that, but also remember that settler fair that was taking place in a synagogue yet again? And there were pro-Palestinian protesters outside of the synagogue protesting, saying, let me be clear, we support Hamas here, right? And Zoran Mamdani condemned not the settler fairs, but the protesters who were saying that. On the opposing side of that were Kahanists, the JDL, the Jewish Defense League, an open terrorist organization. Okay, if you abide by the designation of Hamas being a foreign terrorist organization, so are the fucking Kahanists. Of course, Hamas has never actually had an act of terror on U.S. soil. JDL has. Okay, Hamas has never committed an act of terror on U.S. soil. The JDL operates on U.S. soil with impunity, even after being designated as a foreign terror organization. And they were also doing death threats to Zoran, by the way. The Kahanists were saying that they would rape Zoran to death and shit like that. Reminder that everyone who rushed to condemn Palestine protesters in Queens last January protesting a land sale conveniently sidestepped the fact that the JDL was present and threatening to rape people. Now they're responsible for another terror plot. Yeah, it gets to a point, man. I understand the societal pressures, or I wouldn't say sympathetic necessarily, but there's a reason why I don't bring up the Islamophobia angle as much, even though it's far more intense and far more institutionally pervasive, far more institutionally permissible than anti-Semitism actually is. Okay? Anti-Semitism is not institutionally permissible at all. Now, that might change in the future, but for the time being, it doesn't, you get punished for it, right? As a matter of fact, I'll go so far as to say you get punished for it even if you're not being anti-Semitic, but some of these institutions cynically smear you as an anti-Semite, right? But it's just ridiculous. Like, what will it take for people to finally stamp this shit out? What will it take for people to take this seriously? Do pro-Palestinian advocates have to die? It's unbelievable. What began as a routine check triggered by a persistent odor led to an unsettling discovery. A hidden lab operating inside a California warehouse containing dangerous pathogens, including HIV, malaria, and COVID-19 and Ebola. Not in the headline. Police arrested a man named Ori Solomon, a 55-year-old Israeli citizen. Investigators found a cache of weapons and arrested Solomon on federal weapons charges. Yeah, this happened recently as well. Initially, they reported it, I believe, because... is this the same one as the... No, there's a... Yeah, this is also tied to China, yeah. So the lab, or the warehouse, I believe, was owned by a Chinese national or something. So that's why they wrote the initial investigation saying, oh, China's trying to do a terror attack. Turns out the dude who was operating the warehouse, the actual dude in the warehouse, was Israeli. Yeah. An Israeli citizen was arrested in Las Vegas after police found a cache of weapons, lab equipment, and more than 1,000 samples of unknown liquids at a home tied to a widening biosecurity investigation, the Los Angeles Times reports. Ari Solomon, 55, is accused of illegally possessing firearms and improperly disposing of hazardous waste. Authorities said officers in protective gear removed materials from the home, which were consistent with those found in a separate case in California. That investigation began when a foul smell led officials to a warehouse in Reedley where they discovered a hidden lab containing thousands of biological samples, 1,000 lab mice, and evidence of at least 20 infectious agents, including SARS, hepatitis, and dengue. If you guys remember, by the way, at the UCLA campus protests, they released lab rats. I don't know if it's connected to this, but I do remember that. Do you remember that? At the UCLA campus protests, the pro-Israel terrorists, the counter-protesters, went to the peaceful student encampments and released lab mice from a bag. Prosecutors say Chinese national Xia Beishu ran a scheme from there, importing COVID tests from China and selling them as American-made, and a congressional report flagged over 1.3 million in unexplained payments from Chinese banks tied to the operation. Investigators found Xu had listed a Las Vegas house as a bail collateral and called it hundreds of times over the past year, making it a key lead that led police to raid the Sugar Springs Drive property where Ori Solomon was identified as a manager. How much do you think people would have covered the story? Like, because this is the first time you're hearing about it. Story's been around for a couple of weeks now, almost a month, and they're re-reporting on it because like the initial suspicion, I remember reading about it in maybe like 2 months ago. How much you want to bet if this guy was Muslim, it would be in every headline, every article, every news outlet would be covering it. Every single one. Just remember that double standard, okay? It's true. It exists. And there is no reason to deny it. Anyway, the group co-founded by Ms. Kaswani has organized countless protests to draw attention to the suffering of Palestinians in Israel's war in Gaza. The organization has become known in New York for its at times inflammatory rhetoric and disruptive tactics, including a demonstration that led the police department to shut down Grand Central Terminal. In a statement to the New York Times, Ms. Kaswani said, FBI agents had told her on Thursday night that a plot against my life was about to take place. She added, I will have more to say as additional details come to light. I will not stop speaking up for the people of Palestine. Thank you for your support. Robert Frazier, who was sworn in on Monday as the U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, said there was no threat to the public. We thank our law enforcement partners for this work identifying and removing this potential threat. How is there no threat to the public? That's a whole ass group that he was a part of. Just because he's the only one that is stupid enough to act out on these desires doesn't mean that the group doesn't exist. The JDL is or was a fucking foreign terrorist organization. Ms. Kaswani has drawn the opprobrium of pro-Israel groups for saying she supports the liberation of Palestinian people by any means necessary, including armed resistance. Protesters at events organized by her group sometimes wave the flags of Hamas and Hezbollah. This is the gross side of it, by the way. This is the New York Times, not so subtly, explaining to its readership that maybe she deserves this, okay? Just so you understand. Because you might read this and be like, I don't give a shit. Who cares, right? But this is a way for the New York Times. This is a way journalists do this all the time, okay? This is where the implicit biases come in. This is a way for the New York Times to just like subtly anchor the story around how Nardine is not a perfect victim, okay? A grosser version of this would have been to put this at the top and not bury it, right? So at least they had the decency, if you want to call it that, to not put how much of a rabble-rouser Nardine is and how much she actually does deserve this kind of incident. The maximum worst version of this is to just like straight up victim blame. I mean, this is a little bit of victim blaming, but like straight up put it in the title, obviously. The group's tactics and its use of certain slogans have led to accusations that it and its members are anti-Semitic. Ms. Kaswani has long denied those accusations, argued that her activism opposes Israel, its policies, and its structure as a Jewish state. A common chant within our lifetime protests is Judaism, yes, Zionism, no. The state of Israel has got to go. But pro-Israel and many Jewish groups have rejected our argument, calling it a smokescreen and saying Zionism is intrinsic to the religious or ethnic identity of many American Jews. Okay, well, that's crazy, and that should change probably. Okay? You know, that's not anyone else's problem but those organizations. You can't have your cake and eat it too, especially when, you know, cat's out of the bag, toothpaste out of the tube. Israel is a, and they deserve this, by the way, deeply unpopular entity, okay, for its unlimited violence to its neighbors and its unlimited violence and torture regime towards the 6 million Palestinians that it unfortunately currently illegally occupies the lives of, okay? So just running around and consistently saying, well, sorry, this is our thing. This is our religion. Yeah, well, it's no different than fucking, you know, someone who's an ISIS supporter being like, sorry, The Islamic State is a deeply embedded part of my ideology and my identity. You're being quite Islamophobic. Okay? Officially, within our lifetime, is a small membership that may not exceed a few dozen people, but since the war in Gaza began, its reach has grown significantly. Its protests often attract hundreds of people whose marches have closed bridges and stalled traffic in the city's busy streets. When Meta shut down the group's Instagram account in February, just 5 months after the start of the war, it had roughly 180,000 followers. Ms. Kiswani's activism has made her a reviled target for pro-Israel groups. In February, she filed a civil rights lawsuit against one of those groups, Beitar US, which she said had used social media to put bounties on her head. The group had posted about her frequently in years. She also said the group had harassed her in person with beepers, an apparent reference to the Israeli military attack on Lebanon that used exploding pages to kill at least a dozen people and injure thousands more in 2024. In January, New York Attorney General Letitia James announced that Beitar US had agreed to stop what her office decried as widespread persecution of Muslims, Arab, Palestinian, and Jewish New Yorkers who disagreed with its view on the Middle East. She also said the group had agreed to dissolve its New York operations, which run its activities in the United States. Directed by Israel, by the way. Like, it's not even a thing. Like, some of the key figures in this movement are straight up operating out of Israel. Neither the criminal complaint unsealed Friday charging Mr. Heifler nor the law enforcement officials who discussed the investigation suggested that Beitar US or its online activities were connected to the plot on Ms. Kiswani's life. But in her statement on Friday, Ms. Kiswani accused it of being one of the several Zionist organizations that have encouraged violence against my family and me. Yeah, I wonder why she said that. Why are you making it seem like that's a irrelevant factor here? In an email to the Times, Daniel Levy, a spokesman for Beitar US, announced Ms. Kiswani is a supporter of violent revolution and no innocent. He said his organization was not connected to the plot against her life. We, of course, know nothing about this threat and have had zero contact with law enforcement on this issue, he said, before adding, that said, Palestinians are a violent people. What a fucking button to end it on. Just unfiltered racism. Ugh. Anyway. So, yeah, remember that when considering all of the terror jacketing that these guys do. Remember that when considering all the fucking vicious, vile smears that these guys launch against any and every loud and outspoken anti-Zionist. Don't you think 35K viewers would rather watch you play a game or whatever this is? Okay, dude, take a week off. Hassan Piker rallies spark backlash in Michigan's Democratic Senate primary. Dr. Abdul Sayed's primary opponents criticized him for inviting Hassan Piker to a campaign with him. Mr. Piker is a fierce critic of Israel. At least they don't fucking call me an anti-Semite. Tim Balk wrote this article. I gave him some quotes earlier this morning. Tensions over Israel burst into the open in the Democratic Senate primary in Michigan this week after a candidate scheduled rallies with a provocative left-wing streamer who's been an outspoken critic of the Israeli government and its war in Gaza. The candidate, Dr. Abdullah Sayed, who is in a competitive three-way Democratic primary, faced forceful criticism from his opponents and others within his party after announcing that the streamer Hassan Piker would join him at rallies at the University of Michigan and Michigan State University on April 7th. Now, remember something here. If you're at this point, you've been in here for long enough, so you kind of probably have a pretty solid understanding of how Hasbara works, okay? But I will repeat it one more time for the newcomers. There are certain outlets in the United States of America that are steadily churning out these sorts of articles, constantly calling me an anti-Semite and like building up the SEO for when people Google my name. And these articles are always released in a timely manner right after I do like some sort of, positive media run or anything like that. I'll go to the Vanity Fair party and then the articles will come out talking about how dangerous of a terrorist I am. The articles usually come from the Jewish Insider, New York Post, I guess California Post is the new version of that as well, and Fox News Digital. Those are like the primary vectors for this kind of thing, okay? But there's a difference. Those are cordoned off, right? Those are very obvious cordoned off news outlets. So when those guys write stuff, and the Free Press as well, when those outlets write things like this, most people don't pay attention to it. It's mostly just preaching to the choir, right? Maybe making them more hysterical. And that's precisely the reason why after years and years of attempts like this, they haven't really met any serious standard. There's also other groups involved in this, like the ADL or its different branches around the country or other Jewish advocacy groups as well that masquerade as Jewish advocacy groups, but are simply predisposed with defending the nation state of Israel. So normally the way this stuff works is those guys write their articles, they write the smears, it doesn't go anywhere. But this time it's a little bit different. Now it's actually breached containment. It's actually reached mainstream media outlets. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because Third Way, which is not billed as a pro-Israel organization at all, wrote an article, an op-ed in Wall Street Journal last week, right after I was in the Vanity Fair Oscars party and got some positive press out of that. And from that point on, and I went to Cuba, and then a lot of people were yelling and yada, 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 right? But they just have not stopped. They just have not stopped doing just a faucet of a barrage of manufactured consent pieces all around, both on Twitter with botted posts and any right-wing newspaper that will write an article, right? But the reason why this time is different, and New York Times is reporting on it, is because they were able to get the ADL or maybe AIPAC or some Zionist donor, big donor, to make phone calls to actual Democratic politicians. First, it was Brad Schneider in Illinois, a person that's gotten $6 million from AIPAC. And then it was Elisa Slotkin and also both of Abdul El-Sayed's primary opponents. Haley Stevens, who is the AIPAC hand-selected candidate, and Mallory McMorrow, okay, the Warrenite in the race. So once they released statements as Democrats condemning this decision for Abdul El-Sayed to appear alongside me, then it was newsworthy. So now the New York Times is writing about it as well. So here we are. Mr. Piker's huge young following has made him an appealing ally for progressive Democrats. He taped an interview with Zohar Mamdani last year during the New York mayoral race and later attended Mr. Mamdani's election night party. In 2024, he filmed a stream from the Democratic National Convention. Some called Mr. Piker the Joe Rogan of the left. But his statements about Israel have alarmed some Democrats. He said that the Hamas-led attack on Israel on October 7th was the direct consequence of actions by the Israeli and U.S. governments, and that it doesn't matter if rapes happened on October 7th, saying that doesn't change the dynamic for me, seeming to refer to the Hamas-led violence. He also said the Palestinian resistance is not perfect. Mr. Piker stood by those comments in an interview Friday. He said he did not deny there was sexual violence during the October 7th attack, but that doesn't make the genocide acceptable. He also once said the United States deserved the September 11th terrorist attacks, but later apologized for the comment. So what's crazy about this is that the quote that I gave, or the context that I afforded was definitely more sensitive than the choice that the journalist took to pick and put in there. It's not obviously a full quote at all, but it doesn't matter. Whatever. Let's keep going. Mr. Piker stood by those comments. Dr. El-Sayed's rival seized on Mr. Piker's planned visit, which was announced 12 days after a man drove a truck into a synagogue in suburban Detroit, wounding a guard in what the authorities described as a target act against the Jewish community. In an interview with Jewish Insider on Thursday, State Senator Mallory McMorrow, another candidate, described Mr. Piker as somebody who says extremely offensive things in order to generate clicks. That is not somebody that you should be campaigning with at a moment when there's clearly a lot of pain and trauma across our state, Ms. McMorrow told the news outlet, adding, "You don't fan the flames and stoke division just to get attention." You apologize for the 9/11 quote? Yes, I have in 2019. It was about blowback. Okay, all memes aside, it's about fucking blowback. That's it. It's something that most Americans understand, but it doesn't matter. Okay, the mention of the synagogue attempt is a little gross, in my opinion. This is how you stitch it up. This is how you try to, somehow subtly, maybe not so subtly, say well, these are the actions born out of the sentiment being expressed by the likes of Hassan Piker. That's not somebody that you should be campaigning with. Anyway, Representative Haley Stevens, a moderate fourth-term congresswoman and another candidate in the primary, said in a statement Friday that it was unacceptable for Dr. El-Sayed to campaign with Mr. Piker. She accused Mr. Piker of building a career on hurtful and anti-Semitic comments. In the interview, Mr. Piker strongly denied accusations of anti-Semitism, saying that his criticisms of Israel are confined to the country's government and not directed at Jews broadly. States and people are wholly removed from each other, said, adding, "I find it very cynical when people say that I'm anti-Semitic or make any conflation between Judaism and Zionism." Dr. El-Sayed, Ms. McMorrow, and Ms. Stevens appear to be in a tight three-way contest, according to numerous public polls. Democrats are hoping to hold the Senate seat in Michigan as they chart a narrow path to win the chamber in November general election. The closely watched Democratic primary has been seen as a test of the direction of the party going into 2028. The seat is now held by Senator Gary Peters, a Democrat who was not running for re-election. In 2024 presidential primary, about 1 in 8 voters in Michigan voted uncommitted as a part of the protest of President Joe Biden and his approach to the war in Gaza. Mr. Biden was running for re-election at the time in largely Arab American precincts in the state. About 75% of Democrats voted uncommitted. Dr. El-Sayed whose campaign call for lowering the temperatures after the synagogue attack, showed no sign of backing down over Mr. Piker. He suggested Friday that Mr. Piker provided a valuable voice at a time when the party is grasping to reach younger voters. We always ask why young people don't vote, Dr. El Sayed, a progressive former public health official, said in a statement. Maybe it's because politicians don't talk to folks in the places that they actually are, or worse, purposely exclude them. I'm not a politician and won't stop talking to everyone else who they've locked out. The Detroit suburbs have long been a theater for debates over the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The area is home to one of the largest Arab American populations in the United States and a large, deeply rooted Jewish community. The local chapter of the Anti-Defamation League called Mr. Piker's invitation to the campaign trail deeply troubling. Jonathan Greenblatt, head of the organization, said in a statement that the invitation was absolutely shocking and reflected a dangerous normalization of anti-Semitism in our politics. Even beyond Michigan, Representative Brad Schneider, a Democrat from Deep Blue, Illinois District, said on social media that Democrats risk losing our credibility to condemn those on the right who traffic in bigotry. He wrote that Mr. Piker was an unapologetic anti-Semite. Mr. Piker said it was very flattering that he was receiving so much attention, but that he was puzzled by recent pushback after years of engagement with Democratic politicians. Former Governor Andrew M. Cuomo, who ran for mayor of New York last year, tried to use Mr. Mamdani's ties to Mr. Piker as an attack line during that campaign. Mr. Mamdani won anyway. Why is it only now that people are getting very frustrated by it, Mr. Piker asked. I assume it's because there is a power center in the party that's worried about losing its grip, losing its relevancy. Also, the flattery one was not the full quote either, obviously. I said, it's very flattering that these people think I'm like this singular figure that is capable of changing people's minds, but I'm merely a reflection of the resentment that the average Democrat feels. That was the full quote. So attacking me doesn't actually do anything other than negatively polarize yourself against like large subsects of the base of support, especially on this issue that is a 90-10 issue. You need to tighten up your pull quotes, bro. Dog, I just gave you a tight-ass quote. I just gave you the tightest of quotes. But even then, it doesn't matter. Adam Carlson has gone back and forth on this, or very possible I'm way overthinking it. She really just doesn't like Hassan. One, I think people in this online echo chamber majorly overestimate how much normal people in Michiganders know and care about Hassan Piker. Agreed. I don't think they do either. However, people in Michigan State University and University of Michigan do. Like, there are definitely fucking student fans that will be like, oh my God, Hassan is coming, where that normally would not go to some random politician's campaign rally. That's the whole point. That's the reason why Abdul asked me to go, you know? 2, I've had major issues with some things he said, but in my opinion, he's not in the same realm as Nick Fuentes. Oh, thanks, Adam. 3, this pivot from McMorrow seems like a strategic bet that Stevens voters are more gettable than El Sayed voters, and maybe, yeah, I like that when it comes to like the subtle anti-Semitism allegations, he's like leaning into it, but then this is correct. His argument here is absolutely the case. McMorrow is pivoting away from the progressive side in this race now to try to steal away not the voters necessarily, but the donors. Okay, because I don't think Stevens's voters are going to go for McMorrow. They're going to go for Stevens. They're already locked in. They're already dialed in because she's not a very charismatic campaigner. She's not a very charismatic person in general. They're already, they see something in her, okay, that I guess is irreplaceable. But the reason why she's doing this is because I think she wants to pick some of Stevens's donors, because Stevens has a lot of money, has a lot of big donors, specifically in the pro-Israel advocacy side of things, okay? And that she was, this pivot from McMorrow seems like a strategic bet that Stevens voters are more gettable than El Sayed voters, and maybe that more undecideds are deciding between McMorrow and Stevens, and that she was never going to outflank Abdul on being progressive on Israel-Gaza, essentially conceding that the left lane and trying to chart a Goldilocks path to the nomination. Whether intentional or not, I think this will make it more likely that AIPAC will turn their fire on El Sayed alone, rather than both McMorrow and El Sayed, which seemed to be their plan before. Yes, your take is how savvy these slanders are. Yeah, I mean, she's fake. She's phony. She's totally phony, right? Check Mamdani's tweet about the Nurdin attack. He deleted it? No. Bro, she's against Medicare for all. No chance she was ever going to go to the progressive route anyway, but empty platitudes? Yes. There is a crisis born out of a good thing. The good thing is that the landscape now demands more radical, more progressive, more bold candidates. That's a good thing. But the crisis born out of this good thing is that now wise candidates are trying to fulfill what Adam Carlson there called the Goldilocks zone of being fake progressives. Oh my God, he did delete it? That's crazy. and then reposted it. He changed the tweet for some reason. That he was like slated to flee to Israel? Is that why? Is that what he took out? No, he did. He took out the fact that he was changed the offshoot. Wait, where? Oh no, he did keep it in there. Never mind. I can't even fucking see it. Yeah. No, he just corrected it. He just edited it. First paragraph. I'm sorry. You're killing me, man. No. He didn't. He didn't change it like in any way, shape, or form that's like significant. First he said alleged JFL, now offshoot. Yeah, he actually made it a stronger statement instead of alleged JDL. Dems have been reproducing the same candidate with the same pitch all my miserable life. I'm guessing it'll only stop when the sun runs out of hydrogen to burn. Yeah. Slotkin joining Laura Loomer's crusade against the podcaster pretty much sums up the opposition Democratic Party. Didn't McMorrow work at Jezebel? Surely some not Zionist Jezebel vet would have some good stories to tell. Dems have been reproducing. She worked at Jezebel? And she made herself out to be down to earth like Mamdani in ads and just a regular working class person. But here she is seeking donors, hopefully without voters finding out. Politicians these days don't have a backbone. Morals and principles is disgusting. They sell themselves the highest bidder. Yes.
Of sweeping gun violence prevention reforms here in the state of Michigan. Now, there is a brand of progressivism that I get really frustrated with. I'm going to be candid, where it is a brand that's about being right instead of actually making progress, where there are political purity tests that stand in the way of building a coalition. And
yeah, this is like a candidate basically signaling to their left flank that like signaling to their audience that like you shouldn't vote for my left flank because they're silly, they're crazy.
Introducing legislation and passing it that I think is really hurtful. But I also believe we can't just chip around the edges. Moderating policy is not the solution. We need to be bold. We need to dream big. And we have to be smart enough to know that we need to build coalitions to have the votes to not only win.
Bro, she's like a TV politician. I swear to God, she strikes me like a politician you see in like a movie or a TV show. It's basically just like perfectly crafted messaging that's means tested. There's just like no life behind it, right? There's no intensity behind those words. There's no real belief system behind those words. It's just like someone who is operating like a robot that's just saying what she has focus tested and assumes are the right words.
Elections, but to move policy that actually benefits people's lives.
She also sounds like ChatGPT a little bit. Let's be real.
And this is true for Michigan. This is a state where people have voted for Rick Snyder and Gretchen Whitmer, a state where people voted for Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. I am pragmatic. I'm practical. I am a real person.
Yeah, that's the difference, though. Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump are both outsiders that don't present themselves as like moderates. They're radical in many ways. They're system breakers. I think that's part of the reason why Abdul has to be a little bit more out there as well. Because Abdul is too nice. He's way too nice. He reminds me a lot of Uncle Cenk, who not like new Uncle Cenk, but old Uncle Cenk. Cenk has always been a fighter, but I will say that he like genuinely and sincerely has like that moderate position in his heart, like loves America, so grateful to be here, you know, and Abdul has that same energy as well. Abdul loves the United States of America, like in a way that reminds me of Cenk.
And I care about problem solving. And I think that's what most people are looking for.
The Democratic Party doesn't understand Michigan as a former Michigander. I do get it. You are kind of on the right track. The real answer is that Michigan is gerrymandered to hell. And what you really have are both ends of the spectrum and not a mythical moderate voter. Also, this is a Senate run, so it doesn't matter. That's why someone like Abdul could capture the attention of a much, much broader coalition than someone like Mallory. The thing is, Democrats still in the primaries run on electability. Okay, so that's the problem here. Like Mallory McMorrow, before this very moment, in my opinion, was locked in on presenting herself as a progressive for that reason, saying Israel's doing a genocide, all this stuff. That was specifically designed for her to show that she's an electable young candidate, right? Abdullah, on the other hand, might be scary Muslim. Maybe that's not going to work in the general, like that type of thing, right? However, Abdul, because of his advocacy, because of his work around the state, and because of his opinions, right, being uncompromisingly anti-Zionist, being uncompromisingly for Medicare for all, and consistently saying, look, man, we got to get the Republican voters back on our side on these issues. And the way he communicates makes him a far more electable candidate as opposed to this business as usual politics. Okay? Mallory McMorrow has shown that she is more responsive to the needs of the donors than the needs of the base by drawing a line in the sand on the issue of Israel. It's that simple. She has revealed her position. She's revealed her position. It's not one that is born out of a desire. She's not running to do right by her constituents. She's running because she wants power. Why do the libs spend so much time hating on the left? Because they're libs, man. What do you want? They're antagonistic to the left because the left exposes some of the contradictions. The left exposes the contradictions in the way that liberals run and don't follow through. Smearing Sam Piker with comparison to Nick Fuentes is obviously outrageous, stupid, and harmful, but it's also just a failing strategy. Ripping your opponents for not being pro-Israel enough, you're begging to lose. Normal people see right through this. No more crying wolf. I agree. 100%. We're the ones converting the voters, not the shit libs. I agree. Yeah, Dropside out here doing the work. I recall like last week or so, there was someone who was complaining that I had actually converted one of their Groyper friends to like an annoying communist now. And this person was a liberal. And they were mad that I had actually pulled someone from the throes of right-wing radicalization, from like being a fucking neo-Nazi, and they were upset. They were upset with me. They were like, ugh, yawn. HH Tatakai, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. But yeah, all this shit doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. Who cares? Hassan Piker went to bars in Havana wearing Cartier glasses. That's a bigger story. This is funny. As opposed to Cash going to Cuba. Also, this generation's most brilliant mind, Nick Shitley, is at CPAC. We're going to be talking about that as well, obviously. Clavicular got arrested. Unbelievable crime. And protesters taken to the streets in the Philippines over Iran war emergency. And then we'll talk about the RGC revelations in a second. I got to pee.
Are angry. They're angry about the soaring cost of fuel, the fact they can't afford it. They're angry that they feel their government isn't doing enough. And it says something so stark about the impacts of Donald Trump's war in Iran and how it's spreading all the way here to this continent, some 4,000 or 5,000 miles away. Now, the people here are marching towards the presidential palace. There's a good couple of hundred of them. I just want to show you around. There are students, there are people who drive taxis, there are agricultural workers, there are fishermen, and they are really, really angry. The cost of fuel in the Philippines has more than doubled since the start of the war in Iran back in the end of February. And the Philippines is the first country in the world to have declared a state of energy emergency, essentially, according to the government, that they are at imminent risk of running out of fuel. And the government has said just this week that they only have about 45 days of fuel left. Think of that, 45 days. And there has been real demonstrations here of who they direct that anger at. A lot of anti-American statements, a lot of anti-war statements. Let's take a step back and just remind ourselves why this is such a problem for the Philippines. The Philippines buys 98% of its fuel from the Middle East and from the Gulf states, places like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and others. And the vast majority of that has to travel through that crucial Strait of Hormuz, where the Strait of Hormuz, of course, controlled by Iran and has been largely closed for these past weeks. And that means places like the Philippines are in real crisis. I mean, speaking to people here, fishermen and farmers and taxi drivers saying they are currently running on losses if they even go to work because the cost of fuel is so high and that they are just not able to afford those sort of prices. Remember, of course, the Philippines is far from alone in this region. Asia is by far the most exposed continent to the Strait of Hormuz. 84% of all the oil and liquefied natural gas that goes through that strait is bound for Asia. And so there are many economies in this region who are suffering terribly. Places like Vietnam has ordered people to work from home. Schools in Pakistan have been closed. Schools in Laos have reduced the number of days the students can go to school. It is having a sustained and deep impact across economies that frankly are developing, that do not have the stockpiles, do not have the reserves, and have a lot of people either living in poverty or closer to the poverty line who are less able to absorb.
Good job, America. Good job, Israel. Fantastic stuff. You did it. Protesters also blamed
Strangers
U.S.
to pressure. Students, no strangers to protest.
Yeah, they're also straight up blaming. They just released an updated version of this. Protesters blame U.S. imperialism for the crisis.
98% of this country's oil comes from Middle Eastern routes that are blocked. A dependency now the cause of genuine crisis. Supplies could be all but gone in just over 40 days' time. The president here is a man under pressure.
Straight up a cancer on the entire world, dude. We are a cancerous entity. Straight up. Us and Israel. Big cancer and little cancer.
We are continuing to look for additional supply. We will also continue supporting our commuters so the impact of the conflict in the Middle East can be lessened.
But there is a real tension here too, and a sense that things could well boil over. Government subsidies and scrambling may not be enough.
The problem here, and the reason these people are so worried, is that there doesn't seem to be an end in sight to all this. And energy shocks, by their very nature, take a while to bite and longer to work their way through. And it's hitting a region where the economies just don't have the broad shoulders or the reserves to handle it.
Indeed, across Asia, there is barely a country untouched. Vietnam has ruled working from home. Bangladesh has rationed fuel and closed universities. Back in Manila, they're not shy with their sense of what or who is responsible.
Who do you blame for the fact that the fuel prices are so high? Whose fault is it?
Number one, the U.S. imperialists.
U.S. imperialists?
Yeah.
I mean, because the Philippines is a long-standing ally of the U.S. Is that something that you would like to see change?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. It's because all this ally thing, them helping us, it's just a front of their bigger agenda to exploit not only the Philippines, but the so-called third world countries.
Expensive fuel will mean expensive food. The price of rice here has doubled already. And in a region where millions already live in or close to poverty, we may yet only have a glimpse.
By the way, not that it matters, but apparently I didn't even know this was a Progressive Victory event until they released it. They've been constantly asking me to be a part of it for like the last week or so. And I was like, fuck it, why not? Sure. And Progressive Victory has revealed that the reason why Graham Plattner didn't actually like back out, but had a scheduling conflict from the start, and that they had released that he was going to be on it before actually getting his name on the, before getting the full confirmation. I have no reason to believe that this is for any other reason. And it's unbelievable, or I guess the most believable thing, that like all of these like fuck Hassan derangement syndrome losers literally think that this dude is backing out an event that because I'm also participating in it. Are you out of your fucking mind? Are you out of your fucking mind, dude? It's so crazy. It is so fucking crazy that dudes on the internet run on drama. They think that Graham Plattner was like, oh my God, Hassan is going to be a part of this? I have to get the fuck out of this. I can't touch this with a 10-foot pole. And there are, like, I'm seeing it. There's like people who legitimately think that this is the case. I think a guy like Graham Plattner has a lot more consequential red flags that he has to deal with personally, that he has dealt with successfully, as a matter of fact, than being associated with someone like myself. Liberals are so funny. After literally calling him a fucking neo-Nazi for months, they fantasized a world where he was actually anti-me, and then they're like, okay, I guess he's not a neo-Nazi. He's good now. Like, it betrays your first principles. Like, you are so unprincipled. You literally just operate on fucking Hassan derangement syndrome, brother. I'm a goddamn Twitch streamer. Wake the fuck up. What is this? So far today, Michigan State Rep Who is this? Michigan State Rep, Maine U.S. candidate, Grand Planner decided not to rally this weekend for Michigan U.S. Senate. Wait, what? They're not fucking rallying for Abdul Sayed. These people are. What is happening? Is there a world where pro-Israel people don't fucking lie? Like, is there a world where people who are, super invested in defending Israel can just like do it sincerely? Why does it always have to be straight up fucking lies? It's so crazy. They're confusing two events because they're dumb as hell. No, I don't think so. I don't think it's I think there is a sincere operation here to, like, I think these guys, remember what I said about Cuomo, where I was like, this is not going to land. These attacks are not going to land at all. And it almost feels like Andrew Cuomo has recognized he's not going to win the race. So he's just like doing a favor to some big donor out there by trying to make my brand more toxic, right? If you recall at the time, I was like, why the fuck are they like constantly pummeling me for some reason in the Zoran race? Run a fucking better race, big dog. If you're trying to win, you shouldn't be bringing up a dude that most voters don't know about. And the ones that do know about are excited at this association, or the ones that actually despise me also despise Zoran for the same exact reasons, right? HH Tatakai, thank you for the 100 gifted subs. Do you see what I mean? Like, it's so strange. Taking you down would be the easiest W to achieve right now. Yeah, but you're not going to take me down. Like, that's okay. Here's the problem. Here's what a lot of people don't understand. No one, and I mean this seriously, not a single fucking person, not a single person in this community is like, oh my God, I love watching Hasan because he's constantly hanging out with politicians. Okay? There is not a single person that has been like, well, I love this guy because he associates with Democratic Party politicians. You are misunderstanding the fucking appeal. Okay? If you're so invested in the old guard mentality, what do I always tell you? We are in a totally different media environment. Okay? We're in a totally different media environment. It's a totally different media landscape. I get positive press coverage from these, institutionally relevant newspapers, legacy publishers, and the like. That doesn't move the needle for me at all. What moves the needle is like going on the Theo Vaughn podcast, right? Like, that is actually where the real audiences are, right? Going on and doing one appearance on Theo Vaughn or a Joe Rogan or something like that is infinitely more valuable as far as like reaching out to a broader audience than getting 1,000 New York Times articles written about me. I hope people understand this, okay? However, a lot of my haters are old guard boomers, okay? A lot of my haters are old guard boomers who think, oh, associating with a politician is the peak of legitimacy, or being in the New York Times is the peak of legitimacy. Like, it doesn't work that way, okay? Sure, it gives you a little bit of clout with like relevant people, okay? But the reality of the matter is, if we're just looking at it from a pure algorithmic basis, a pure quantitative approach shows that when I fucking interview politicians, the numbers go down. People don't come in here to hear about the politicians and their takes. They come in here to hear my takes. That's why politicians come to me, not the other way around. And it's funny because like a lot of people in the media that are intelligent enough, or a lot of people in the political world that are intelligent enough, understand that. And they also falsely associate me with being like the singular party for why so many young people in the base of support in the Democratic Party are anti-genocide and anti-Israel. Yeah, they think that you're the reason the base is so anti-genocide and anti-Israel. They want to make you be toxically progressive politicians so that progressive politicians don't associate with you, because if they collab with you, it lends them some authority, authenticity. That's why it's so funny when these guys are like, oh, dude, you're doing this for clout. It's like, what clout can I get from fucking standing next to a politician, you idiot? The fuck? You just like don't understand the media dynamic at all. Just as you don't understand the impact that I have. I can help some people arrive at the correct conclusion, but I'm not a fucking singular force that's a mover and shaker. It's you guys. It's all the protests. It's first and foremost the Palestinians that have, in spite of the genocide, been able to show their plight to the rest of the world, sometimes in their last moments. You know? I'm a megaphone. That's all I am. I'm a platform, okay? I have my own worldview. I have my positions. I'm very stubborn. I won't stop my advocacy, but at the end of the day, Like taking me out would not actually solve this problem anyway. Or forcing politicians to not associate with me would not be beneficial for the politicians at all. And it wouldn't do anything to me in any way, shape, or form. Times of Israel wrote an article, by the way. Representative Brad Schneider, an Illinois Democrat, delivered a forceful condemnation of the popular streamer Hassan Piker on Tuesday, warning his fellow Democrats against embracing figures he says traffic in hate. Hassan Piker is an unapologetic anti-Semite. Schneider, who chairs the new Democratic coalition, wrote in a post on X, Democrats risk losing our credibility to condemn those on the right who traffic in bigotry, anti-Semitism, and hate when our own members of Congress and candidates are celebrating blah, 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 blah. So what's really interesting about this is I've been on the receiving end of like a barrage of smears like this before, for sure. And if this were to happen to me 5 years ago, it would be over. Okay? No one would ever listen to what I have to say. I would probably quit. I'd probably have to go away. I probably would be deplatformed. If this were to happen to me 2 years ago, which it did, it would make me very sad. I'd be at least a little fearful that this is going to have a serious negative impact on people approaching me with charitability. But it's happening in 2026. It's too late. When the Times of Israel writes an article like this, as an Israeli newspaper, talking about an American political commentator getting yelled at by an Israel First Democrat that's gotten $6 million from AIPAC, this doesn't actually create any pressure on me at all. I legitimately think they view it like this. Look at how few resources a Twitch streamer put into an Illinois 9 race, and look how close Cat was to winning despite the massive AIPAC ad spend. That's a huge threat to them if that perceived progressive force increases a little more. Yeah. I don't know who the fuck Brad Schneider is, and I'm pretty certain he doesn't know who the fuck I am, right? With love, we can move on. Oh, thanks. Can we? Well, you can move on the next week when you can come back to the chat and talk. While speaking at a conference in Qatar last month, Piker said that he had lost viewers in the wake of October 7th for his commentary explaining people were not ready, especially in Western audiences, for someone to say Israel played a significant role in how October 7th took place. No matter how much shit they sling in my direction, no matter how much shit they sling in the direction of people who collaborate with me, right? I will never be a less popular brand in America, a less popular figure, a less popular organization, a less popular entity than the State of Israel. That's it. And even if I were to become a less popular entity than the State of Israel, the State of Israel itself will still be far less popular than whoever else takes my place. Brad Schneider's nephew is Aaron Regenberg. Wait, Aaron Regenberg? Is that? No way. Wait, what the fuck? No, you're joking, right? No, that's crazy. Aaron is wonderful. I won't reveal. There's Wikipedia told me. Wait, that's crazy. Aaron is great. He gets it. Aaron he's at the New Republic. He's contributing editor to the New Republic, lawyer working to hold big oil companies accountable for their climate crimes. Oh my God. Oh my God. That is fucking what the hell? Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, I won't say anything else. Okay, that's crazy. Not all nephews are like their unks. You're proud of that? Yep. We're going to have an unk off. Still, Reverbs, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. No, Aaron is great, regardless of his uncle. Actually, this makes it even more interesting. It makes it infinitely more interesting that, this makes it all the more interesting that his uncle is Brad Schneider, and he's like he is an anti-Zionist and routinely talks about how like a lot of these Jewish advocacy organizations are fomenting anti-Semitism, including his uncle, ironically enough, by conflating Zionism with Judaism. Like, that's got to be a wild Thanksgiving dinner.
On Iranian television, revolutionary guards praying amid their missiles in an underground tunnel. State propaganda, yes, but also evidence of the forward planning which has kept Iran fighting this past month, making America's own planning for this war look woefully inadequate. Only a third of Iran's missiles have been destroyed for sure, according to US intelligence officials. Their anonymous briefing seemingly contradicting Donald Trump's claims that he has already won. The Pentagon says American airstrikes have hit more than 10.
Oh, Wall Street Journal revealed it? Okay, so it's real. According to Wall Street Journal, citing U.S. and Saudi officials with knowledge on the matter, several U.S. service members were injured in the Iranian ballistic missile attack on Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia earlier today. The Pentagon has yet to respond with a comment. The IRGC also claims that it struck U.S. naval assets and personnel at Shuaik Port in Kuwait City and along the Dubai coast during Wave 84 of Operation True Promise 4. Iran's Revolutionary Guard said its Navy carried out a combined missile and drone attack, claiming multiple vessels were hit. The IRGC said 6 U.S. LCU landing craft were struck at Shuaik Port, with 3 reportedly sunk and others left burning. It's said that Qadr 380 ballistics and cruise missiles were used in the attack. Simultaneously, kamikaze drones targeted what it described as U.S. drone unit personnel at coastal positions and a hotel in Dubai. The statement claimed a large number of U.S. personnel were killed. I don't know about that. Claims versus confirmed damage. The Kuwait Port Authority confirmed that the Shuaik port was targeted by a drone strike at dawn, causing material damage on March 27th. The UAE Ministry of Defense reported the detection of 16 ballistic missiles and 121 UAVs, drones, on March 27th. Air defense systems successfully intercepted 15 of the missiles and 119 of the drones. Yeah, I don't believe that. Loud explosions heard across Dubai were attributed to these mid-air interceptions. Yeah, by the way, with these, with the Gulf states and in Israel, they do this too. They greatly, and Ukraine does this, Russia does this, everyone does this. They greatly beef up the numbers of how many successful interceptions take place. It's just, very commonplace. I just need you to understand. Like if you followed any OSINT, open source intelligence stuff, you know that they're just like, oh yeah, we've intercepted 750 missiles. Actually, it's crazy. I don't know how we did it. Iran launched another ballistic missile wave against central Israel, as footage shows impacts from cluster munitions in Tel Aviv. How do they still have so many missiles left? What do you mean? They got fucking unlimited stock, baby. Yeah, also no sirens. Did you notice that? No air raid sirens. Interesting. Dow closes in correction, down 10% since a record high in February as war in Iran roils markets. In a normal world, it would be far worse than that. For the record, it's just that bad because it's only 10% because everyone is like aching for any good news that they can lean into heavily. Israel Hayom documentation of the falls in the Dan block. Ynet, 1 killed in Tel Aviv by an Iranian fragmentation missile. Wall Street Journal reveals for the second time. Oh shit. Even fucking Google Chrome gets busted on this new beefy boy that I got. Hold on. I gotta run it back and restart it. Is your body cold now? What do you mean? Oh, where is the history? Hold on. I have to restore all of my windows that I closed, okay? Chrome just sucks as a Chrome user. It's so badly optimized. I know. Hold on. Is Chrome not your PC, big dog? I mean, obviously my at-home desktop is much better at managing the unlimited tabs that I have open at all times. So just get a Mac. You're crazy. You think a Mac is easier to... We got another hype train. Goddamn. You think a Mac is easier to stream with? You can't stream on a Mac. Macs are notoriously worse at... Like, you can't stream on a MacBook. Apple heads. Bro, Mac is infinitely better than any Windows laptop you can get. Yeah, it don't matter. You can't stream on it, though. It's, like, much more difficult to stream on. You are 100% wrong. I started initially streaming on a Mac. It's not about the hardware, chatters. It's not even about the optimization. It's about the software. OBS is open source? Wait, what? 20 years ago? Wait, guys. No way. OBS is open source? You mean to tell me that my Lifeline? You mean to tell me that the thing I've been using for the past 8 years to make every fucking dollar I've ever made is open source? I had no idea. Thank you. I used to stream on a MacBook. Why are we having this conversation? Who cares? Let's have this other conversation instead. Andy Bashar being a little bit of a sellout.
Some of your fellow Democrats have called Israel's actions in Gaza genocide. Do you agree with that? Yeah, that's becoming one of those new litmus tests that we said we would never do as a party again. It's trying to throw out a word, and are you going to raise your hand or are you not going to?
That's your response? Yeah, it is a litmus test because it shows whether or not you're an actual real one or you are going to be totally captured by corporate interests. Andy Bashar has revealed his position. Andy Bashar has revealed that he will be totally captured by corporate interests. That's it. That's all I needed to know. I mean, I had my suspicions anyway, but it's over. It's a wrap.
I understand that Israel was hit with a terrorist attack, the likes of which it had never seen, and it has been through a lot, and that it deserves the right to defend itself and to eradicate that terrorist organization. I believe that it could have been done without a lot of the suffering, but I put a lot of that blame also on Donald Trump. If he'd have said, we are coming in and we are bringing food and aid and you are going to make sure that we're safe, it would have happened.
But given that, I mean, back to the AIPAC question, should Democrats be taking money from AIPAC?
I think that's up to each and every Democrat, and they can own who they take money from or who they don't.
Oh, God. Oh, my God, brother. Oh, my God. You, like, have a fucking spine, dude. Holy shit. Oh, my God. He can't even say, yeah, I don't think AIPAC, a right-wing, reactionary, foreign government's lobbying arm, should not be spending unlimited millions of dollars on our races, and Democrats should stay away from that. Josh Shapiro, even worse with more words.
Spoke with
God, Democrats, they are so... I mean, I think there's a really good lane here, okay? I think there's a really good lane here. These guys don't understand. They refuse to read the room. They are wholly unable to read the room and address the desires of the base. So I think there is a really unique opportunity here for some banger candidates, okay? Which, judging by the way that they're attacking me right now, whoever comes out and also speaks out against Israel with zero uncertainty is probably also going to be on the receiving end of shit like that, but they just need to stay strong, okay? But this is very clear that, like, the party and all of the front-facing candidates for 2028, they want this. They want this. They want Gavin Newsom. They want Andy Bashir. This is exactly what they want. They don't want someone they want someone who will do apologies. Yeah, dude, stop doing leftist purity culture litmus tests. You're driving away normal people. What's next? Are you going to need Democrats to be against pedophilia, murder? Geez, you lefties and your purity culture. That's what it sounds like. Trump just said Cuba is next at a Saudi council. Oh, fucking Christ. Scumbag.
In the end, I think people need to be clear about their stance on the...
I mean, Plattner actually is, like, low-key a good example of this. I will, however, say, like, there is by way of consulting groups, by way of consulting firms and ad firms, some of which work with, beloved candidates who I am closely associated with. There is this, like, weird coalition that I'm seeing. McMorrow is aligned with Liz Smith. Liz Smith is the media whisperer. She was Pete Buttigieg's, comms person as well. And McMorrow has hired Liz Smith, and Liz Smith is anti-Abdul El-Sayed. Liz Smith is very close, from what I understand, with Morris Katz, who is the whiz kid that a lot of people wrote extensively that they claimed was, like, responsible for Zohran Mamdani's campaign victories. It's interesting, and I don't think there's any sort of, like, real ideological commitment there at all. But I don't know. Yes, Morris Katz is very good. The Fight Agency is very good. They're even working. I mean, they've talked about taking their talents over to across the pond and working with Zach Polanski as well. They also work with Tallarico. They also work with Plattner, Graham Plattner. Campaign people don't necessarily hold ideological views with what they do. They're essentially mercenaries. I know. James Tallarico is who Twitter lives in progressive things. Rizlis Bashar is. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, what matters is the candidates and their policies and their convictions. Okay? That's what matters. A good campaign will highlight that. Green activist called Jews abominations in League WhatsApp chat. Green Party activists have described Jewish people as an abomination on this planet, and a string of anti-Semitic WhatsApp messages the Telegraph can reveal. Oh, they're coming after our boy. They're coming after our boy Zach. Ay. Anyway, I have to go. It's not true. What is this? Oh, actually, they were describing Jewish supremacists as an abomination on this planet. Clickbait bullshit. They were Jewish supremacists. She's using the correct description. It's us who have been scared into using the word Zionist because of the fear of being labeled anti-Semites. Enough of being starved or hurting their feelings while they murder and starve children. Yes, take back the narrative and true meaning of the term, particularly Zionism and Semite. They're an abomination on this planet. When the first Twitter handle I was shared with Dr. Aldawan, now she's going to call the people who have destroyed her and her family. Yeah, I have to go. Unfortunately, I have to do an actual half day again because I have an event that I have to go to. The clavicular school walkout. 4.5 hours. I know it's busted. It's fucked up. But like I've said already, I will be possibly attending if it's at the same time frame as my stream. I'll be attending a No Kings rally potentially tomorrow. And I will have Effie Phillips Staley on. And I'll also do that rally thing, the anti-war rally thing that they wanted me to do that I guess Grand Planner backed away from. But in any case, that's what we got for today. I love you guys. Half day boots on the ground confirmed. Yeah. Oh, come on. No, it's not happening, as you guys have seen. We have a stay of execution here for American Empire. All right. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.
Stunning Ro-Fi introduction, starting off the day. All the chatter's trickling in. Hustle people hate. Sunny in Los Angeles, California, says the sun. Stun luck to the stun luck to the topics just begun. 'Cause there he is again. Hassan is streaming. Hassan is streaming. There it is again. Hassan is streaming. Hassan is streaming. Review of a Chinese train, telling Kaya place. Sun and Asmin chatter loves, giving greetings grace. Zoran winning NYC, woke two back with the force. The Rogan of the left, to me a dumb himbo still of course. The Charlie Kirk assassination, the Fear and Online show. 8 full fucking years of this, and plenty more to go. Doing fun stuff tomorrow, throw PBS up on the screen. A man-made horror reaction brought to you by this live stream. 'Cause there he is again. Hassan is streaming. Hassan is streaming. There he is again. Hassan is streaming. Hassan is streaming. Kicked out of the DNC, IRL with March the Goat. Combating the propaganda that shoved down people's throats. CBS Israeli news, a coup, a regime falls. A full-blown fascist takeover, and still the duty calls. Total radicalization coming out to see. The system will always fail, it's up to you and me. On these daily streets, whether short or whether long, have helped millions of people keep it moving right along. 'Cause there he is again. Hassan is streaming. Hassan is streaming. There he is again. Hassan is streaming. Hassan is streaming. But hey, what can you say?